What up, everybody? Good morning and a happy Wednesday to you all. DK Show coming to you from the TDS Sports Talk Studios this morning. A big thanks for making us a part of your start, whether it's on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM, also available online at sportstalk1051.com. You can stream it up over there. Download the app, take a go, smart devices, smart speakers, and video streams all up and rolling, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. What do we got on our game plan for us this morning? Well, we begin with the Bucks. Awful news last night. It was reported and then officially announced by the Bucks that Damian Lillard is going to miss an indefinite amount of time. He's going to be out indefinitely after being diagnosed with a blood clot in his right calf. So we know that Dame has been dealing with a calf issue for a little bit now, and all the testing they found a blood clot in his right calf. He is on blood thinners, which has stabilized the blood clot, according to Chris Haynes. He will continue with the regular testing to get him back to good health. Dame also coming out with a statement last night saying, "It's unfortunate that something outside of my control would come up. Along with the Bucks medical staff, our priorities are to protect my health and safety as much as I love basketball. I need to be there for my kids and my family. I'm grateful the Bucks acted quickly on this. They've been supportive and proactive throughout this process. I look forward to moving past this and continuing my career." Um, there is, and then later on last night, Sam Amick from The Athletic, senior NBA writer from The Athletic, uh, posted that league sources say there's a great deal of optimism that Damian Lillard will return this season from his blood clot in his right calf, but I think it's really kind of wait and see and see how he kind of responds. And if we get to that point, John Horst also saying last night, Damian's health is our number one priority. We will support him as he moves through this weekly process of strict criteria to ensure that it is safe for him to return to play. Doctors have indicated that his situation is very unlikely to occur again. We are thankful that this was identified and medicated quickly, which helps with the recovery. Um, reading a little bit more from the Athletic, a rigorous discovery process began with Lillard eventually visiting with 5 of the top hematologists in the United States. Lillard began taking blood thinners on Friday, the source said, adding that there are encouraging signs that the treatment is working well. So, yeah, 11 games left to go in the regular season, and operating maybe under the assumption that Dame might miss some of the postseason, if not all the postseason. This would be the 3rd year in a row that the Bucks could potentially be without one of their star players in the postseason. Go back 3 years ago, it was Middleton. Last year was Giannis. This year, potentially Damian Lillard. First things first, health is the most important thing, especially when it comes to a very serious issue like that Dame is going through. So that's priority number one, to make sure he's all good and healthy and ready to go. But definitely a blow in terms of basketball. Definitely a blow for the Bucks as they wrap up this regular season with just 11 games to go. Which after tonight it'll just be 10 because the Bucks will be back in action tonight on the road as they wrap up this road trip taking on the Denver Nuggets. So we'll talk some more hoops and talk about this morning. Also on the docket, we are one day away from opening day for the Brewers. So kind of a little bit of a countdown to the start of the regular season. Got a couple more questions that I'm throwing out to all of you this morning. One, who's your like wild card or breakout player prediction for the Brewers this season? Who do you think is gonna be that breakout player? Alright, who do you think's that guy that yeah, maybe I mean, a lot of these guys are the younger guys, but maybe it's a dude who, hasn't done a whole lot, but you're expecting a breakout season from him, or maybe it's kind of a bounce back type of season for this player. Give me some breakout candidates. Give me a player that you think is just going to come out this year and turn some heads, make a big time impression. And the second Brewers question I got all for you all. Give me one big, bold prediction for the Brewers. One though that you it is bold prediction, but one that's not like so completely like out of the realm of reality. Like bold prediction, Brewers are gonna go 162-0. Okay, that's not happening. It's gotta be bold, but okay, still, like, realistically possible, maybe. Yeah, you know what I mean? So, maybe it's like, my bold prediction, Jackson Cheerio is gonna go 30 for 30. It's a bold prediction, but that's where I'm rolling. Jackson Cheerio is gonna hit 325 this season. High goals, bold predictions, but nothing that's, like, almost not impossible. So, send those to me, hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. 715-830-1912. Comment on the video streams or hit me up on the socials, whether it's mine at DANKASPER on X/Twitter, Facebook.com/Casper Sports, or the Sports Talk X and Facebook pages. So we'll talk some Brewers as the countdown to opening day is well, just a day away, day in a few hours. First pitch tomorrow, 2:05, taking on the Yankees. We will continue our Packers potential prospect series as well. We're going to take a look at another defensive player this morning, Trey Amos, the corner from Mississippi. So we'll take a look at him and give you a little bit of a scouting report on potential Packers prospect. Again, if you missed it yesterday, we kicked it off because we're under a month away from the start of the NFL draft, and we're taking a look at some prospects that could potentially be a first round pick or maybe a day two pick for the Packers. We'll try to hit up as many players as we possibly can, realistic players, right? We're not going to go Travis Hunter. I mean, unless Green Bay all of a sudden just trades up and then tries to go after him, and not going to look at quarterbacks or anything like that. So realistic uh, prospects that could be there for the Packers when they're on the clock, either for their first round or maybe early day two. So we'll continue that coming up here as well. Badger basketball, women's Badger basketball, they've got a new head coach. It was announced yesterday, of course, shortly after we talked to RJ. We had some Badger we had some Badger news out there, but the Badgers bringing in Robin Pingeton, former Missouri, longtime Missouri head coach who resigned after this season, after a down season for Missouri. She was announced as the new Wisconsin women's basketball head coach yesterday. She was 250 and 218 overall at Missouri with 4 NCAA appearances. The last one, though, coming in 2019. Her record 25 and 37 in just the last couple of years. So, some Badger fans not really, shall I say, enthusiastic about this hiring. Not all on the up and up on that one. So, but if you have any thoughts on that, if you have a reaction on that, you can let me know too. We'll do some stock reports coming up just past 8 o'clock. Play along with us. Whose stock is rising? Whose stock is falling? You can send those on over to us as well. So play along with us when we get to our stock reports. So let's jump right into it, though. We got lots to catch up on, especially in the first hour this morning. We'll talk some Bucks with the Dame news. Big news last night about Damian Lillard. We'll talk a little bit more about the Brewers with opening day just around the corner. Who is that breakout candidate this year for the Brewers? And give me a bold prediction related to the Brewers or a player on the Brewers roster this year. So send those puppies on over. We'll take a quick break and then get things going here this morning on the leadoff. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Registration's now open for the 5th annual Casper Classic coming to you from Lake Hallie Golf Course Friday, August 1st. Just head to sportstalk1051.com to sign up your two-person team. We've got right now 3 tee times available. The 7:30 a.m. That's only going to be open for sign up until Memorial Day. That's May 26th. So if you want to golf early on, maybe before heading off to work, you got to get over there to sign up. And then 1 p.m. and then or the 10 a.m. and then the 1 p.m. The 10 a.m. is obviously the popular one, and that one's filling up here quick. So if you want to get in, get your two-person team in now, head to sportstalk1051.com. You'll see the big icon right there at the top of the home page. So click on that and sign up today. Reminder, everything else is the same. Everything else same. $90 for your two-person team. That's not 90 per person. It's 90 for the whole team. 90 for the whole team. Includes your lunch, your round of golf, your cart, and some drink tickets provided by Park Ridge Distributing. And a reminder, this is going to help benefit our backyard dreams. Let's begin. First off, the big news last night surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks. Damian Lillard out for an indefinite amount of time due to a calf or a blood clot in his right calf, a calf issue that he's been dealing with for a while after undergoing a boatload of tests and trying to figure out what was going on here. It was revealed that they found a blood clot in there, and it sounds like they found out late last week. He's been on blood thinners and trying to control it and trying to manage it, and it seems like it's going well right now. But the Bucks officially announcing it yesterday after it was first reported, I believe, by Chris Haynes from Yahoo Sports, or maybe Shams from ESPN. But Dame coming out with a statement after it was announced officially by the Bucks yesterday, saying it's unfortunate that something outside of my control would come up. Along with the Bucks medical staff, our priorities are to protect my health and safety. As much as I love basketball, I need to be there for my kids and my family. I'm grateful the Bucks acted quickly on this. They've been supportive and proactive throughout this process. I look forward to moving past this and continuing my basketball career. Now, the question is, will he be available for the postseason? Will he be out? There is a report from Sam Amick from the Athletic that, quote, league sources say there is a great deal of optimism that Damian Lillard will return this season. But I think it's right now probably can't say for sure at this point in time. So first things first, when it comes to this, you want to make sure Dame is 100% healthy, that he's good, that they have this under control, that they have this issue well under hand. It sounds like, at least John Horst said in one of his statements yesterday, that doctors are they feel like it's not going to occur again. Here's the quote from John Horst: Damian's health is our number one priority. We will support him as he moves through this weekly process of strict criteria to ensure that it is safe for him to return to play. Doctors have indicated that his situation is very unlikely to occur again. We are thankful that this was identified and medicated quickly, which helps with the recovery. I don't want to speculate whether he's going to be back or not, at this point. I mean, you want to make sure he is healthy. This is a scary situation when it comes to something like this. So priority is to make sure he's good and he's 100% cleared from this, because it is a very, very scary situation when it comes to an injury like this. Victor Wembanyama, it was shortly after the All-Star break. Remember, they found one in his shoulder and they declared him out for the season and such. So, I know I'm a little bit different in that, and if we catch up with Dr. Crow on Friday, we can get a refresher on that. But definitely, still, it's a very scary health concern for Dame. But on the basketball side of things, if we just kind of look at it from a basketball perspective, potentially 3 years in a row now, this Bucks team is going to be heading into the postseason without one of their major contributors. 3 years ago, it was Chris. Last year, it was Giannis. This year, potentially Dame. And this is a Bucks team that's, well, they're fighting for some playoff positioning right now, and it with time running out, with just 11 games left to go in the regular season, it'll be 10 after tonight's game against the Nuggets. It's not looking like the Bucks will have a home court advantage in the first round. They're 2 games back from the Pacers for that 4th seed. They're tied right now with the Pistons, although they hold the slightest of advantages when it comes to win percentage. So they're barely hanging on above the Pistons, who are in that 6th spot. I feel like the Bucks will probably still remain in that top 6, where they won't fall into the play-in tournament aspect, because it does ease up a little bit in terms of schedule after the Nuggets and after Friday's game against the Knicks. But from a pure basketball standpoint, this is a huge blow to this team, especially if Dame doesn't play in the playoffs. Now, I wasn't expecting them to make a deep run. I thought 4th seed, okay, they could probably maybe win their first round matchup, against Pacers or Pistons or whoever it was going to be. But if they're going to be on the road to begin the postseason, if they're the 5th seed and they're going on the road against the Pacers, maybe an outside shot, but they're not great on the road this year. I mean, again, I'll keep bringing this up. 2 of the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference there's only 2, let me rephrase that. There's only 2 teams in the top 6 in the Eastern Conference that have losing records on the road, and that's the Pacers and the Bucks. So, I mean, if those 2 teams were to face each other in the postseason, the first round, that one would probably go the full length there, because teams would probably win their home games and then, and go to a final game of that series to ultimately decide it. But if the Bucks fall down to the 6th seed, then, they're going on the road to face the New York Knicks. So I don't have a lot of confidence. I didn't have a lot of confidence as of late with the Bucks finishing up this regular season as they approach the postseason here. But now, potentially with no Dame, I'm going to kind of operate under that assumption that we may not see him in the postseason. I mean, it's another season that I feel like is going to be one and done, one playoff series, and then out in the first round. And, something like this with Dame, it's an unfortunate thing. It's, again, a very scary situation, something that he couldn't control. It popped up there, and, not pointing fingers or blaming anybody at this point in time. It's just another season that, when we get to the postseason, we're going to talk about injuries or health issues that have popped up at the end of the regular season leading into the postseason. Now, this is a Bucks team, though, too, that's been very inconsistent throughout this season. I mean, you're talking about an incredibly slow start to begin the season, dug themselves into a hole, bounced back, but then has just been kind of up and down as of late. They're 4-6 in their last 10, especially. So it's like, not to completely close the book on this Bucks season. It sure kind of seems like it at this point, but not to completely close it. This is going to be a very, very, very interesting offseason, and a very critical offseason for the Bucks, because I think there's going to be a conversation that's going to start, or a narrative that's going to start amongst Bucks fans, that is it only going to be one with Giannis? Is it only going to be one championship with Giannis? I mean, I hope we've got a few more years left of Giannis playing at an incredibly high level like he is this year. And I hope the Bucks try to continue to surround him with enough talent out there. But I feel like that narrative is going to start to creep up a little bit more. And I've already started to see it a little bit on social media. Some people saying, boy, they really did, maybe sell their soul for that one championship a couple of years ago. But I feel like that narrative is gonna start to creep up into the conversations here, a little bit more and maybe more this offseason when we get to that, and, I hope the Bucks are gonna be able to get another one with Giannis still playing at a high level. I really do, and I hope they can figure it out, and they're gonna have a little bit more financial flexibility this offseason to maybe build a roster around Giannis and Dame. I feel like Dame and Giannis are going to be back next year for the Bucks. But something else after that has to change. Whether it's better depth, maybe it's coaching, maybe it's something else. But definitely I would say, even though it's not over with yet, a disappointing season for the Bucks for various reasons. Both from a play standpoint, hovering around a fifth or sixth seed in the Eastern Conference with just 11 games to go. Injuries, health scares with Dame. Disappointing season for various levels surrounding this Bucks squad. And, we'll see if they can get out of this road trip with a win tonight and with a winning record. But it's going to be tough going over to the Denver Nuggets, who are currently the third team in the Western Conference, a team that is 23-12 at home this year. Now, they are 4-6 in their last 10 games here too, but they've got Memphis right on their heels, half game back from getting into that third spot. So Denver playing for a little bit of playoff positioning here too. But if the Bucks could get this win tonight to get back to 10 games above 500, and still try to keep pace with the Pacers for that fourth one, it would be a nice confidence boost. But, I mean, it's got to be all hands on deck here. Giannis continuing to do his thing without Dame on the court. I want to see a little bit more from Kyle Kuzma from a consistency standpoint. Looking a little bit more. Maybe does Kevin Porter Jr., is he going to get more action? Even more action than what he's been getting? Can he be a consistent contributor from the offensive side? Because without Dame, you got to try to find 25 points per game. You got to try to find, some three-point shooting. Got to try to find somebody who's going to make up 7 assists per game. Where's that going to come from? Reminder, they don't have Bobby Portis back yet either. So, I mean, you're missing Dame and Bobby Portis for a stretch. We're going to get Bobby Portis for a couple games before the end of the regular season. That should be a boost for this team, but where's this production going to come from with no Dame for the foreseeable future? It's got to be an all hands on deck outside of Giannis. Giannis just got to continue to do his thing. I mean, to ask him to do more is, that's a tough ask, but maybe more from Gary Trent Jr., more from Kevin Porter Jr., more from Prince, more from those guys, more from Brook Lopez. It's got to come from everywhere. Everywhere. Everybody's got to step up their game here a little bit. And if it's not going to be from an offensive standpoint, maybe it's got to come from a little bit more from a defensive effort. If you can't find a way to fill in those offensive numbers and what Dame can provide on the offensive side, it's time to up the defensive end. Switching gears here for a little bit before we have to take another break. Brewers-wise, as we are just one day away from opening day, Thursday against the Yankees. Freddie Peralta on the mound again this year, the opening day starter. Should know here soon in the next 24 hours, a little over 24 hours, of what the final roster is going to look like for the opening day roster. That'll probably change after day one, but we've been kind of throwing out some prediction questions and all that fun stuff. But when it comes to the Brewers, got a couple questions that I want to throw out to get your answers and your feedback on. One, who's a player, a breakout player, breakout candidate this year for the Crew? Who's that player that you think is going to maybe have a breakout year? And give me a bold prediction for the Brewers this year. Give me a solid, bold prediction for the Crew. When we look at breakout players, breakout candidates for the Brewers, there's three names that came to my mind right away. Garrett Mitchell, I think, is probably going to be a very popular pick for Brewers fans to be a breakout player. I think there's a big spotlight on him too because I mean the biggest thing with Garrett Mitchell is just availability. He's been banged up the last couple of years. He's missed some games because of injuries. They're still incredibly high on him. They got a lot of confidence in him. Apparently, Major League Baseball insiders, analysts have a lot of confidence in him, naming him a top 10 center fielder in all of Major League Baseball before the season began. But I think, if don't want to speak again for Brewers fans all across the world, but I think Garrett Mitchell would probably be a popular pick for a breakout player this year if he can remain healthy and be out there and put together, a solid season. I mean, you look at, 2023, he had 73 plate appearances. Last year, 224 plate appearances, but he just played 69 games last year, 19 games in 2023, 28 games in 2022. So if we get over 100 games from him, what are those numbers going to look like? Is he going to be able to provide some of that power in that lineup to help fill in the void left by Willy Adames? We saw Garrett Mitchell hit at the top half of the lineup last year. Pat Murphy obviously feels like he's a guy that can provide a little bit of power there. So I feel like he is a guy that is going to be a candidate as a breakout player for a lot of Brewers fans. Another guy I think is going to be mentioned is Sal Frelick. Now, Sal Frelick came into camp loaded up on, a little bit more muscle. Apparently, 20 to 30 pounds of muscle. And this spring, he hit 390 in 41 at-bats, a 1.018 OPS. Dude's coming off of a Gold Glove winning season in right field. And you look at what he did last year. I mean, he played 145 games for the Brewers. And I feel like he kind of had a quiet, solid season from the plate. Not the biggest power guy, although, I mean, that was a sweet home run in the final game of that series against the Mets, but much to do about nothing after that. We know how that game ended. But, 259. He hit 259 from the plate last year, 655 OPS, a 355 slugging. But I feel like, I don't know if he's, just 2 home runs last year. I think he's going to have, if I had to make a prediction, I think that home run number maybe goes up a little bit more. But, considering he added a little bit more strength to his core, strength to his body, maybe we see some of those numbers go up a little bit. Maybe he becomes like a 275, 280 hitter. Maybe that OPS creeps up into the 700s. But I feel like Sal Frelick, at least from an offensive standpoint, is going to be a candidate for that too. And then Joey Ortiz. You look at what Joey Ortiz has done this spring. We didn't, at beginning of spring training, we didn't know where he was going to play defensively. Was it going to be at third? Was it going to be short? Then it felt like, maybe it's actually going to be second base. But now it's back to short. And this season, he also hit incredibly well in spring training, 341 with a couple of home runs and a 1.145 OPS. Last year, in his first season with the Brewers, 142 games, he hit 239. OPS of a 727, slugged 398. So those are the three guys that I think of for the Brewers as potential breakout players this year. Like, I'm looking at guys that are maybe been with the ball club a year or two and just kind of hovering around there and kind of looking at what they did in spring training. And yeah, those are the three names that came to my mind right away when thinking about breakout candidates, breakout players for the Brewers this season. So when you look at, pitching wise, I mean, it's pretty veteran heavy presence towards, considering the starters. I mean, Quintana, those guys I don't really consider breakout type of players. But maybe a younger arm, if we do see Craig Yoho at some point this year coming out of the pen, maybe it's a Mizorowski in that. But no, I'm gonna go with these 3 guys that are gonna play, every day type of players, and mostly I'm looking at it from the offensive side that they could potentially be breakout players for the Crew this year. In terms of a bold prediction, I'm gonna go with the Jackson Cheerio route. Everybody's doing the 30-30, a 30-30 season. I'm gonna go Jackson Cheerio is an all-star starter this year, and I feel like he is going to be a guy that is going to finish the season with over a 300 batting average. That's my bold prediction. He's gonna be a starter in the all-star game and finishes the season hitting over 300. I mean, we could do a few more bold predictions, but that's I'm going with the Jackson route. I'm going with the Cheerio route. I'll throw one more in there. Christian Yelich finishes the season with over 25 home runs and at least a 280 batting average. So, all right, 2 bold predictions. And no, I got to throw a pitching one in here because I don't want to cop out from the pitching one. Freddie Peralta finishes the season with at least at least 13 wins. Now, I know that number may not sound like, "Oh, well, way to go off way to really stretch it there on a bold prediction." But when you look at Freddie's numbers, throughout his career and just given how starting pitchers are these days, I mean, Freddie hasn't the most wins he's had in a season is 12, and that was in 2023. All right, I'll up it up. 14. Freddie finishes with 14 wins this year. Bold prediction. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll wrap up the first hour with a quick another Packer potential prospects coming up in next month's draft. If your bracket's busted, you can still participate in our Sweet 16 bracket challenge. Just head to our website, sportstalk1051.com, and click on the Fan Cave tab and scroll down, and you'll see the icon there for Sweet 16. So if you're like, well, dang it, my bracket's done, don't have a lot of teams left, or maybe your champ's out, maybe you got St. John's going far or something like that. Well, let's see if you can do better with the Sweet 16 challenge over there. So again, just visit sportstalk1051.com, click on that Fan Cave tab, scroll all the way down, and you'll see the icon over there. Wrap it up this hour, but hey, before I get to the Packers talk, send me your bowl predictions when it comes to the Brewers. What are some bowl predictions you have, and give me a breakout player. Give me a breakout candidate for the Crew this season. We continue our Packer potential prospect series less than a month away from the NFL draft in Green Bay. We're taking a look at some potential picks for the Packers, whether it's their first round pick at the back end or maybe an early day 2 pick. And we try to cover as many realistic picks or realistic prospects that we can leading up to the draft for the Packers. So again, we're not going to talk about quarterbacks, like a Cam Ward or anything like that, or Travis Hunter. I mean, I guess Green Bay could trade up to get, put themselves in a position to draft him or Abdul Carter or anything like that. But we're just kind of operating under the assumption Green Bay is going to stay where they're at, or just maybe move around a couple spots here, or, a potential day 2 pick for some of these guys. So for today, we're going to take a look at a corner. And we're going to look at guys or positions that I feel like we all think the Packers are probably going to address fairly early in the draft. I know that hasn't always worked out in some cases, wide receiver, but this is how we're going to roll. So yesterday we talked a little bit about Derek Harmon, defensive lineman from Oregon. Today we're going to stay on the defensive side and take a look at a corner, and that is Trey Amos from Mississippi. When you look at him, he's got the prototypical size, or the size that you like when it comes to somebody who plays corner. Listed at 6'1", about $195 in weight. He's played at Alabama, Louisiana, and such. He's a long press corner. So a lot of people probably like hearing that, because that's what we heard that Jeff Hafley talked about, a little bit last year. You want a corner that plays a little press coverage and such. I was reading a little bit about his draft profile. Says he uses his physicality and length to shrink the 50-50 odds in his favor. He can play in multiple coverages, but is most consistent in zone. Needs to ramp up his run support and trust his eyes in space, but he has the goods to become a solid starting outside corner. Daniel Jeremiah had this to say. He's ranked Trey as number 41 in his top 50 prospects, but with an arrow trending upward, saying he has excellent size, is a fluid and smooth athlete. He split 5 seasons between 3 different schools, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, during his college career, leading Ole Miss last year with 13 pass breakups. He has average twitch and burst, but he plays with excellent instincts and ball skills. He can play the ball with his back to the quarterback as well as any corner in this draft. The only real question I had about his game was his top end speed, and he alleviated those concerns with a 4.43 40-yard dash at the combine. So I think we Packers fans, or at least the majority of us Packers fans, still feel like that corner is going to be a top need for Green Bay. Whether I think a majority of us still believe that Jair's going to be on the move at some point. Yes, they signed Hobbs, and they feel like he could be an outside corner. Keyshawn's going to get a shot at that. Carrington's going to get a shot at that. But I still feel like corner is a need for Green Bay, and a fairly high need for Green Bay, because, again, we saw last year what one injury to this secondary can do for the Packers. It changes a lot of different. I mean, they were mixing and matching and moving guys out of position and such. And with Jeff Halfley, the defensive coordinator, a defensive back, a secondary coach by trade, I want to see Goody give him as many weapons, as many players as possible when it comes to his secondary. Because again, Green Bay would rather drop more in coverage and try to get home with 4. And I think they need a little bit more depth and a little bit more talent when it comes to their cornerback position. Assume that Jair's gone, and you've got Hobbs, and you've got Nixon, and you've got Carrington Valentine. I still think you need at least another top end corner. Even if they view Hobbs as an outside corner, I still feel like they would be smart to move him inside in a nickel base defense. We'll see if they actually do that or not. But when you look at Trey and you look at his intangibles, I mean, he's got the typical size, prototypical size that you would like to see in a corner. And I was listening to one of the interviews that he was doing at the combine, and he just talked about how much he loves playing corner, just loves playing corner. And he checks a lot of the boxes off when you kind of read some of his scouting report stuff for what the Packers want to do on the defensive side, especially when it comes to their corner and their secondary play. So looking at, and plus Senior Bowl guy, we know Green Bay has really targeted guys that have participated in the Senior Bowl. We know Goody goes down there, scouts a lot of those guys when it comes to the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, that checks off another box potentially too. So don't be surprised if Trey Amos, maybe not a first-round pick, although he's kind of sneaked into some mock drafts at the back end of the first round. Maybe he's a guy that's available early day 2, depending on how everything kind of plays out here. But this would be a guy that I wouldn't be surprised to see if Green Bay drafts to try to improve their depth with that corner position. Because I'm still one that I would like them to get more corners. Because they're one injury away from really shuffling around a lot of stuff, even with bringing in Hobbs. No offense to Carrington Valentine, no offense to Keyshawn Nixon, but I still want some more protection over there, and I still want some more depth at that spot. And you can bring in a guy like Trey or another rookie corner and just have that added depth. Have that added protection there, because I don't want to get into a situation that we saw last year where you have one injury to the secondary and it's like, well, crap. Now we got to do this and we got to do that. We got to move this guy here. We got to move that guy there. And you don't have the right guys in the right position to be successful. Saw a couple of player comps when it came to Trey, saying that he's like a James Bradbury from the Philadelphia Eagles. So, I mean, if you're familiar with his play, I feel like a couple of fans talked about, James Bradbury, adding him to Green Bay and such. But so that kind of gives you an impression how some people kind of view his play style. Definitely spent a lot of time in college. I mean, he's a veteran by college standards, played at some big-time programs, starting off at Louisiana, but going to Alabama and then Ole Miss. So he's played some SEC football. He's gone up against some of the best of the best down there. And you look at his statistics from last year, 841 defensive snaps, 515 coverage snaps, 4 tackles for loss, 13 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, a 54.5 passer rating allowed, only 3 penalties too. Only 3 penalties. So Trey Amos, that potentially could be a Packers prospect in next month's draft. We'll continue this series coming up tomorrow. We'll probably hit up a couple of players tomorrow. I'll throw a wide receiver in there, and I'm going to go wide receiver and edge rusher for tomorrow. All right, we'll continue some more Brewers talk coming up next hour too, plus more Bucks talk with the Damian Lillard news, with him being out for an indefinite amount of time with that blood clot in his right calf, although there is some reports that the Bucks are optimistic that he will return this season. We'll see. I think it's just kind of like how the medication, how the blood thinners are working, how he's feeling, how his recovery is going. I don't think it's anything you can push at this point. So we'll see how that all goes out. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. Don't forget to send me your stock reports, stock risers, stock fallers, whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling. We got a couple texts for some Brewers breakout players. Quite a few of you going with Garrett Mitchell. Travis is going with Garrett Mitchell. Nate is going with Garrett Mitchell. David is going with Garrett Mitchell. Chris is going with Sal Frelick. Tim is going with Joey Ortiz. John is going with Joey Ortiz. Some bold predictions. Tyler, I'm assuming this is a bold prediction. Hoskins average above 250 and 35 home runs. Chris's bold prediction for the Brewers is 90 wins this season. Josh's bold prediction for the Brewers this season is Jackson Cheerio being a 30-30 player. So continue to send those on over to me on that Shoe Doctors bullpen texting line, or again, you can comment on the video streams or hit us up on the socials with those bold predictions. We'll get back to some more of those along with some more Brewers talk coming up a little bit later on this morning. Reminder, you'll be able to listen to tomorrow's home opener right here, 105.1 FM and 790 AM. First pitch around 2:05 at New York. I don't know what the weather's going to be like in New York tomorrow. Should double check that. I'm not sure what. Let me see if I can figure that out here. So today, all right, 51 and sunny, it looks like. All right, good. Sunday, it looks like potentially rain. Ugh. Do they play? Yeah, Sunday. They don't play Friday. So looks like it'll be decent tomorrow. 51 and sunny. Get the game in. No bad weather, right? That's all we want to see to begin the season. Not too cold. And not too cold over there. So, all right. Shot clock's going to cut me off in a couple minutes here. So let's catch up on a couple more texts here. I thought Morgs might be popping in, but maybe not. So we got a couple more bold predictions here. We've got Steve, another Steve, saying bold prediction for the Brewers is Christian Yelich hitting 30 home runs. And another bold prediction here from Travis is Brewers hitting 95 wins. So we'll get back to, I got a couple more, but we'll get those coming up a little bit later on. Morning, Morgs.
Hey, did you hear they have a new Go Entry thing at the Brewers AmFam this season that they want people to do? It's a new ticketing system. Did you hear about this?
Yeah,
have you used this before anywhere?
No. I know that they tried something similar last year and it didn't work right away. Then they brought it back. So I've not tried it.
So basically what it is you register yourself on the app, but then there's a shot of your face. And so once tickets are on the account, you just walk through security and keep walking through the new facial recognition. That is so weird to me. Do you use facial recognition for stuff?
I don't even use the thumbprint stuff on my apps.
Now, would you do this? I was just reading about it because I'm like just seeing what protocol is at AmFam and stuff. I'm like, I don't think
I feel like there would be a lot of issues. What if you're wearing sunglasses? What if you're wearing glasses?
What if you're growing a beard? Yeah.
I don't know if I trust that.
Speaking of growing a beard, somebody we work with this morning nicked themselves shaving. Have you seen this yet?
No.
Oh, it'll be in the hallway, so I'll warn you ahead of time. Because I know it's early to be holding something sharp near your face. I get it, dudes. Like, I feel for you. Not always fun to shave when you wake up early. But they cut their face shaving, and they're wearing a Pikachu Band-Aid, like right across the cheek, like a Chikachu.
Oh, gosh.
I know. So if you see it coming down in the hallway.
I think I have a guess on who that is.
I think you probably know who it is, too. But if you haven't seen it yet, I thought So, hey, no matter what your day is starting out like out there, if you don't have a Pikachu Band-Aid and you're blooding from the cheek,
it's probably off to a good start.
Better than that, right?
Yeah, exactly. All
Perspective.
Right. Thanks, Morgs. We got one in, two more to go. We'll be back after these news updates. Second hour kicking off on this Wednesday morning as we make the turn on this week here, final full week of March coming at you. So we'll get back to some more Brewers talk as we are getting set for opening day tomorrow, taking on the Yankees. Continue to send me your bold predictions when it comes to the Brewers, maybe some breakout players. We've been going through that. So a lot of you kind of with the same players, majority so far going with Garrett Mitchell. You got a little Sal Frelick action, Joey Ortiz also listed on there. So continue to send those, and we'll get back to some more of your picks a little bit later on. Bucks wise, we spent a good chunk of the first hour talking about the Damian Lillard news with his blood clot in his right calf muscle that is going to leave him missing some action for an indefinite amount of time, the team is saying right now. I know The Athletic was reporting that there is some optimism that he could return this season yet, but we'll kind of see how that all plays out. It's nothing that you can really push and such. So, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. Bucks are back in action tonight, taking on the Nuggets as they wrap up this road trip of theirs. 2-2 so far on the road trip. If they get this win, they will be back to 10 games above 500 and still trying to keep pace with the Pacers, who are currently 2 games ahead of them for that 4th spot in the Eastern Conference. Bucks and Pistons tied for the 5th, but the Bucks holding a little bit of a win percentage advantage over the Pistons here. Eases up a little bit after this week for the Bucks in terms of schedule. They've got the Knicks on Friday, but after that it eases up a little bit before they take on the Pistons for the final 2 games of the regular season in a home and away series. Badgers also making a move yesterday in terms of finding their new head coach for the women's basketball program. Robin Pingeton, former Missouri head coach, just resigned this year from Missouri. Spent a long time over there, but hasn't made the NCAA tournaments since 2018, 2019. So a lot of Badger fans out there kind of maybe questioning this hire, questioning this move by Chris McIntosh. Badger basketball, or I should say Badgers overall, have struggled to find kind of a long-term coach for that spot. Maybe what, Luke, since Lisa Stone, perhaps going back then a little bit. So
because Lisa Stone, of course, was excellent with the Blue Golds and didn't really translate down at University of Wisconsin. So it has been, I mean, historically, modern historically, let's not go super deep, but modern historically, it's an also ran program, and nothing's really changing.
I feel like, just in my opinion, maybe they tried this and it was turned down. I thought they should have went and got somebody that has ties to Wisconsin, whether it was a Division III coach. I know, is it Fisher from Oshkosh? Is that his name that was kind of mentioned out there for the women's team as a potential option over there?
Brad Fisher.
Brad Fisher, yep. I mean, to be real, kind of a Bo Ryan route. For that, somebody who understands Wisconsin basketball, can kind of maybe have a pulse on the state of Wisconsin basketball, not just at the at the Badger level, but all across D3 and such. I mean, you look at UW Green Bay is the better women's basketball college program, and it has been for a long time. And that's not a knock on UW Green Bay. That's awesome to see UW Green Bay over there. But if I'm the Badgers, I at least have to figure out, how is that? Why is that? Why is UW Green Bay having success over us for this amount of time, and how do we get into that? How do we tap into that potential? And right now, I hope this hire works, but I have my doubts.
Does this have shades of what's going on across the border with St. Thomas and Minnesota and men's basketball?
Maybe
the smaller program is now. Of course, the Nico Medved hire could very much change the dynamic with that. We'll see.
But that's also a guy that's got Minnesota connections, right?
Right. There you go. And I know the Ben Johnson hire, Minnesota connections, that didn't work, but that doesn't mean inherently it doesn't work. But there they went and found someone who has a good track record of coaching from the state. Probably this might be his homecoming place. He's not going to then immediately jump to like Mississippi State or something. Just go SEC because that's what you do. So yeah, I I don't know if it's an internal thing. It feels like one of these things where they need to do a full reboot,
Mhm.
a reset. But just as an outsider, I'm sure someone like RJ would have a better pulse of what's going on down there. Why it never really translates. But some programs can't quite figure it out. We've seen that with different programs, different universities, and it's like an Achilles heel for certain ones, and they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. You look at, I think, was the last time Wisconsin in the NCAA tournament, was that with Lisa Stone? I'd have to double check
Might have
that.
been.
Yeah, double check that over there, which is a long, long, long time. I mean, we're talking about maybe when I was still in college.
NCAA tournament appearances, their last one was after that. It was 2010.
Okay.
But there's not a lot. 92, 95, 96, 98, 01, 02. So, I mean, yeah, they were better back it was the Jane Albright era. They were WNIT runners-up in 99, and they won it all in 2000. And then Lisa Stone took over, and they had one. She was technically above 500, but they did make one WNIT. But the point is, it's not the NCAA. They made one NCAA in 2010. Nothing really worked since then.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
And why is it just that, I mean, that's the question. Why isn't it working, right? I mean, is it lack of resources? Is it a lack of
You'd think not.
Is it a lack of enthusiasm that, they're not putting a lot of effort into it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, they got to start somewhere at this point to establish some sort of credibility with that program. I don't know if that's the right word to use. I mean, but we know it's the men's team that gets a lot of it. You kind of break it down. I know DP yesterday was having this conversation. Maybe we put it. What if we do a Wisconsin spin on this? Is Wisconsin a basketball, a football, or a hockey school? What would you say?
Football, basketball, or hockey school? That is actually a really tough one because historically, the hockey is excellent. They were one of the most consistent winners in men's basketball for a long time, and they still, broadly speaking, are. I think they've kind of settled into a Milwaukee Brewers role of not always, but oftentimes
putting themselves in a position to be contenders.
Yeah, and exceeding the expectations in a given year. Now, it doesn't, then it will flame out at the very end, which is also kind of Brewers-esque, but that seems to be happening in the Greg Gard era. Football is underwhelmed.
I think they want to be a football one, but they're not.
Right. The thing is, you probably could have said that right up to the end of the Paul Christ era. Actually, maybe right into the very beginning of the Luke Fickle era, you probably could have said, okay, yeah, they've done so well since Barry Alvarez, and now they've gone out and finally made the big hire, which hadn't been done really since Barry Alvarez, that they were on track to be a dominant football school. So maybe we're looking at a smaller stretch here that has completely changed the perspective. But if you say they're a hockey school, what are you going to suddenly call them, like Boston University or the University of Denver or something like that? Which great schools, but they're hockey schools. UMD.
I was going to say, would you consider Minnesota a hockey school?
I know if you really ask what it is, they are. I mean, yeah, and then it's the definition of is it because of the excellence of that, or is that what the school is known for? Like, I mean, I think the U of M is. I mean, again, Minnesota's did well again this year. They're one of the top seeds in the NCAA tournament. They've been right up near the top of the pairwise. And the state, we know. I think maybe you would say that about Wisconsin, even though the men's program
exceeded expectations last year. This year, a little underwhelming. It was underwhelming, but there had a lot of player movement, and it is hard with the player. I mean, we talk about the transfer portal when it comes to football and basketball, and hockey's a little bit different because you got the pro aspects of it all and such, and that. But I feel like it's Wisconsin's. If I had to rank them, I feel like it's right now in 2025 on March 26th. It's hockey, it's basketball, then football. But I feel like they want to be a football school.
Everyone wants to be a football school. If you
that's their goal, they're not there.
It's the money involved. I mean, heck, St. Francis if they could, would be a FBS football school.
Mm-hmm.
They're, of course, miles away from that, hence they're going in the opposite direction. But that's where the money is. Everyone wants to be that. Of course, not everyone can be that. You all want to be basically the NFL of your college of college world. But the women's program is a juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, was probably one of my Facebook friends is like, should they rename the trophy after the Badgers women's team? I mean,
The Mark Johnson Trophy.
you could at this point. They're so good. And the men's program's always, even with down stretches, they should still be around.
But there's always a high expectation for them, right? If they're not succeeding,
Mm.
you know, they're like, okay, we gotta, you know, there's at least a little bit level. I would argue a higher level of expectation, maybe compared to the women's basketball program.
Mhm. Yeah. Because that it completely seems like an afterthought.
Because remember, I mean, even the Tony Granado hire, everybody was, I mean, they invested so much money in that coaching staff. Barry did.
That
you
was
know,
a
all the
big deal when that
assistants.
happened.
Yeah.
And it very much underwhelmed. I don't want to make any projections because all you need is one good year from Badger football next year, and this all changes. And that very well could happen. I'm curious, especially with the new NIL numbers, with the $20 million amount. What are the percentages? But it's going to be a hard cap for this. There will be other organizations, of course, that are going to be spending money. And most of the football schools, I remember reading this at Front Office Sports, making a point about how basketball, primarily basketball schools, think like Marquette, might get more of an advantage because they're going to want to devote more of their NIL cap to basketball. The main football schools might end up, I mean, they're not going to be able to devote as much. Of course, they're going to put most of their money into football.
Yeah, and that's kind of what RJ was talking about a little bit yesterday when it comes to, you know, with Wisconsin at, a lot of it is going to go towards football. And that's why the men's team has kind of been working on trying to allocate a little bit more on their own in that aspect for NIL money and such. So
it does make you wonder, though, if it keeps not working. Let's say they've, quote unquote, lost it. We take the worst case scenario. But Badger men's basketball continues to compete. And maybe the sport holds up. I mean, as much as this whole like issues of NIL and the portal, all the hundreds of players that have already announced their intent, they're not all going to transfer, but all the issues of the game, 3-pointer, blah, 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 blah. There's actually a lot there's a lot that's good right now. The ratings numbers are up. We'll see how that goes long term. Well, okay, what if Badger men's basketball starts getting in again? Bo Ryan era, 3 seed, 2 seed, maybe a 1 seed. Badger football is under 500. They're fighting for a shot at the Motor City Bowl or something like that. I know that's not even named that. You know, that if that becomes the trend, at some point, does the University of Wisconsin decide we're going to allocate more of our NIL, understanding you have to play more players, of course, in football? Do they allocate more towards men's basketball and where they're having success, hockey, which is still going to be a small percentage because they're not dealing with $1 million contract for a women's hockey player, even with all their success. I don't think it gets to that, but it's on the table with that school, which I would be unthinkable going back through the 1990s. But yeah, I'd say if I had to, so you're ranking them.
I'm going hockey, basketball, and football, but they want to be football. Then I would say hockey and basketball.
Probably the right answer. I think I agree. I could make a case for basketball, hockey, especially.
That's really tight. It's close because I mean, let's face it. It's NCAA. It's March Madness. We're into March Madness mode, and that's a huge moneymaker. So
I think if they seem to be more assertive about getting, and they've been in the past few years, so I really shouldn't critique them too much because they've been improving in this regard. But if they were more assertive getting 5 stars from all over the place, as opposed to, well, we're going to be academic, then I'd be more inclined to say they're a basketball school. But like I said, they're moving that way.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about this whole transfer portal thing, because I'm sure you saw, you know, the St. Francis thing that, did you hear that? I mean, Division I team
Division
going
3
now going to Division 3. Is this going to be a trend that we're going to see with other teams going down to division, and how does that affect Division 3? You know, is it going to have a trickle down effect?
It probably will. And now it could also could mean that Division III becomes
bigger and better and all
in
that,
some ways,
Yeah.
but then some Division III schools could go the opposite direction. Hello, St. Thomas. They're going up. They've got lots of financial backing, and so that's why they're moving on up towards Division. Well, they already are in Division I. And we've heard discussions about WIAC schools that could go
Well, I mean,
Division I
just
in certain programs.
Yeah. Just to give it, if anybody's not familiar, I mean, St. Francis went to the NCAA tournament
This year. Yeah,
this
period.
year.
That's the end of the they made it this year.
And they're dropping down to D3.
That's it.
I mean, that's right there. What's your reaction to that? I mean, they played an NCAA tournament, and then a couple of years now they're going to be in D3.
Right.
And a lot of it is because of their board said, quote, the governance associated with the intercollegiate athletics has always been complicated and is only growing in complexity based on the realities like transfer portal, pay for play, and other shifts that move athletics away from love of the game. For that reason, as a board, we aim to best provide resources and support to our student athletes in this changing environment that aligns with our mission. Essentially, we can't compete money-wise.
Right. That's it. And I think that's going to happen with other schools. It all depends on how everything is allocated. Everything is balanced out. And if you feel you cannot compete otherwise, you're going to go further down where you can compete. And I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of St. Francis alums and students and supporters that are upset about it, but it'll settle in. They're to use the infamous POLAD term, they're right-sizing their business. It'll make sense in that regard. It's going to make sense in the long run. Compete against who you can compete against. You don't want to be an also-ran and go over every season in your assorted sports if you don't have the money to recruit. I mean, I guess it's unfortunate that someone has to go to a lesser caliber of competition, but that's where we're at right now. I mean, we're correcting, which probably is that this is more of an opinion thing, but we're correcting what was probably the wrong of not paying these players that get so much attention and drive so much revenue. But as a result, not everyone who applies for that is going to stay in the leagues, and that's a St. Francis thing.
Exactly. All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back, though, and we're going to talk a little football coming up after these quick words. space with some amazing new floors. Turn your tax refund into something truly rewarding this year with the help from Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire, where their prices will floor you.
Broadcasting live from the TDS Sports Talk 105.1 studios, it's the Dan Kasper Show.
Coming up just past 8 o'clock, we'll get to our stock reports, but we want you to play along. So send us your stock reports, whose stocks are rising and whose stocks are falling. You can text those on over to the Shoe Doctors bullpen line at 715-830-1912 or hit us up on the socials if you'd rather do that. So play along with us. I'm sure there's a problem. Maybe for some of you, it's your brackets. How's your bracket doing, by the way?
I have not looked, actually.
I did not see you on the main leaderboard, so let me.
I've got 3 of my 4 final 14s.
Yeah, you're not doing good.
No, I'm good at the top, but I know without going game by game, there have been a lot of ones. Oh no, I didn't pick them.
Do you want to know where you're at?
How close to the bottom?
You're 17th
Out of.
Oh, it says 75.
So I'm 70th out of 75 or
17th.
Oh, that's not bad.
Well, that's an optimist. You're 36 points, but the leaders are in the 50s. So
okay, well,
you're done.
Yeah,
you're out of it.
I'm gonna need that Houston, Michigan State title game. I need it.
If you are out of it, like Luke, you could do the 16-team bracket challenge that is up there right now. Or if you want to sign up, maybe make it a little bit easier. There's a 14 bracket challenge we got on there too. That one might be easier for you. There
probably would be. Kelvin Sampson, you're my only hope.
Exactly. So, but you can make new picks. So
I can.
You're not comfortable with that. So, Tim and Jolene up there tied at 53, but Kyle, Brandon, not our Brandon, tied for second, just one back. Brad and Jordan, just a couple back, tied for third. You can check out where you're at on the leaderboard by, again, visiting our website and just going to the bracket challenge and typing in your name. If you're not on that first page of the leaderboard, just type in your name. It'll tell you what place you are currently in. All right, switching gears here a little bit as we are officially less than a month away from the NFL draft in Green Bay. It'd be a month from today. It'd be day 3 of the NFL draft. So that's rounds 4 through 7. And we've got pro days going on, players attempting to make their final impressions on some prospective teams and such. So let's chat a little bit with Joe. And Joe, how's your draft stuff coming along as we get closer to the beginning of the draft next month?
Well, yeah, it is that time now. It's that time to start putting together the board. You're seeing where Green Bay went with first round of free agency, where they went second round with free agency, and now, again, the logical thing is start, okay, what's the board look like? And then you start piecing this together. And so, it's interesting, Captain, because you look at position of need for the Green Bay Packers, and obviously edge rusher stands out, interior defensive line stands out, and wide receiver stands out. And you look at where the strength of this draft falls, and really I think Green Bay can do itself well in those positions in this draft. And the more I break this draft down, the more I'm leaning towards Green Bay actually trading back and getting more picks, because the meat of this draft, the bulk of this draft, yes, you have your top 10, probably even top 14 or 15, but they're from about 16 to probably 65, you're looking at beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so, again, I think with Green Bay having some definitive needs, I think they might trade back. And so again, you start looking at, okay, who played in the Senior Bowl? That's a big clue for Green Bay, because they love Senior Bowl players. And what are they doing pro days with? And where was Goody as far as different schools go? When you start piecing this thing together, and first of all, the position that I really like in this draft is that edge rush position. And it wouldn't hurt me at all if Green Bay picked one of those Aggies to fill that hole at edge rush. Jamar Stewart and also Nick Scowerton from Texas A&M. Jamar Stewart looks the part coming off the bus, but is he looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane, because you've got a guy that didn't have the college production, but his athleticism blows you away. And then you got Nick Scowerton, who was the portal kid from Purdue, who just plays with a mean streak. Reminds me of a much more polished Wayne Simmons as far as a guy that you can bring in and have an edge and a little bit of a mean streak to you. So again, that I wouldn't mind it at all if they could get Jamar Stewart in the first round or Nick Scowerton in the second round. I think both kids are going to be heck of players.
So with Shamar Stewart, the way you described him, Joe, is similar to Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary, which I don't know if a lot of Packer fans would be in favor of that. Why would you be in favor of that?
But look at the tape, and I think Shamar Stewart does a really nice job of setting the edge, and a little bit more disciplined than Rashawn Gary coming out. And again, you look at the next gen stat score breakdown. He's got a 64 production score. That's 26 edge rusher. He's got an 84 athleticism score, which is fourth at that position, for a total score of 77 overall. And so, he's 6'5", about 270. He just looks the part. And again, if you look at the whole tape and you say, okay, well, the sacks weren't there. But then you start looking at what kind of an edge did he set in the run game? How disciplined was he from that position there? And then you start saying, okay, this guy is a complete player. And then you look at Nick Scowerton, and again, he's got more production than Shamar Stewart, but he's a guy that doesn't have the athleticism. He's 6'3", he's undersized, he's about 250, 260 pounds. And then you start saying, okay, Green Bay's tight. And you look at the RAS score and those types of things, and you kind of lean towards Shamar Stewart. The thing with Shamar Stewart, he was in Green Bay actually this past week on a visit. The thing with him is that I don't think Green Bay gets him, though, at the position that they're in. I think to get Shamar Stewart and Green Bay picking 23rd, I think they're going to have to move up about 5 spots. And I just think somebody's going to say that athleticism, we're going to take a chance on him. So if you do want Stewart, I think Green Bay has to make that move. If not, they probably go another position and then load up in the second round on that edge rusher. So, but again, like I said, Captain, the Green Bay's weaknesses matches up favorably with the top of this draft strength.
When it comes to, because obviously we thought Green Bay may have added an edge rusher in the offseason and free agency and such, and they haven't done that. So when it comes to draft, I think we're all assuming that they are going to get one over there. Would you rather have a guy that, okay, the ceiling's potentially high, but maybe it's going to take a little bit, or somebody that's going to produce right away? Because I feel like there's going to be a lot of fans that want a guy that can step on the field and be an impact player right away for this team.
Yeah, and there's no question that Goody expects part of that growth or part of that production to come from an improved Lucas Van Ness. And we've got to ask ourselves, both Van Ness and Gary last year did not adjust very well to the 4-3. And you and I were two of the people talking that, man, these were guys that played with their hand in the dirt in college, and that transition should be really easy. So I think Goody's hedging his bet. I think he's saying, look, we're going to get some improvement in the second year in this defense from both Gary and Lucas Van Ness. We've got some other guys like Enagbare and Cox that can do something or flash. And so then he says, all right, well, I'm gonna address that position, but I feel better about it than Packer fans do. And that remains to be seen. I mean, I think this is a critical draft for Brian Gutekunst, because look, I think he's put the pieces together as far as this team taking that next step. Now they need to take that next step, and now it's where potential needs to meet production. So I think this is a key offseason. I think Brian Gutekunst, based on what he did in free agency or didn't do during free agency, and agree or disagree, it is what it is. He's putting a lot of faith in this draft. And so I think he's saying, I'm going to be able to get players I want to fill in holes and to produce immediately. Look, I think if Green Bay wants to take that next step, they've got to get 2 impact players out of this draft, period, end of discussion. And either that's going to be an interior defensive lineman a wide receiver, or that edge rush again. Going back to the Super Bowl, we saw what Philadelphia could do. We saw what they did with just four guys without blitzing. And I think that's the recipe for success that a lot of teams are going to try to follow. Whether or not they do it or not, that remains to be seen.
You mentioned three positions there. How high should corner be on this list, even though they did sign Hobbs? After that, it's Nixon and Carrington Valentine. Should corner still be high on this draft need list for Goody?
Absolutely. I'd put that probably, I put edge rusher and wide receiver 1A and 1B. And again, the reason I say wide receiver is you don't have Christian Watson for the most part this year. Regardless of what he did production-wise, he was a difference maker. He's setting other guys up. And again, I know Goody's expecting that receiver room to take that next step too, but I think interior defensive line and cornerback are right there. And again, the thing I look at with the cornerback position is this. When you look at free agency and you look at who's out there, you can still get some guys. You could still pick up some guys. Now, again, you're in that third tier of free agency, really when it comes around draft time, when you see, okay, what holes do I still need to fill? So, there's guys like an Asante Samuel Jr. out there. There's guys like a Rasul Douglas out there that you could make a move with. And so I look at what's still out there free agency wise, and I think you can still get some good players at that cornerback position. Now, again, when I say it's moved down the line, I mean, when you stack your board, if you're Goody and you've got a cornerback who's rated higher than an edge rusher, you take the cornerback. And so I've seen a lot of mocks with the Packers taking cornerback in the first round. For example, Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan, I'm seeing him going there. So, yeah, I think that's a huge need, but I also think there's still some good players to be had from a depth standpoint in free agency. So that's the one position where I say, okay, if you don't get that guy in the first or second round, you can go do that second tier free agent signing, which Goody has done. And he's gone out and he's made the moves and picked up a Rasul Douglas originally. And he picked up Campbell later on in the offseason. And again, that didn't turn out well in the long term, but it certainly did that first year he was in Green Bay. So it's that kind of thing where I look at it and say, you could still go pluck a cornerback if he doesn't get one in the first two rounds.
Staying with that kind of same mindset, but on the wide receiver side, we saw Stephon Diggs signing, I think, a bigger deal than a lot of us expected with the Patriots last night. And there's still some veterans out there. Should Goody, maybe the better question, should he do that when it comes to the wide receiver aspect? I mean, Amari Cooper's still out there. There's still some veterans out there. Should he be doing that too with the wide receiver spot?
You know what? I don't like the last veteran I liked was Cooper Kupp, and I thought that what Seattle signed him for was way too expensive, and so but he'd be the last guy that I say. The rest of them just don't move the needle for me, and especially what you're looking for with Green Bay is they need someone, especially with no Christian Watson, to stretch the field, and you just don't have that guy out there, and so. And again, I thought for sure Goody would have addressed the wide receiver position, but now what's left, I just don't think you can do that. And so now you're saying, okay, now we need Wicks to take that next step. Now we're hoping that Dobbs' concussion history doesn't come back to haunt him. And then also Jaden Reed takes that next step, and you scheme to get Jaden Reed open. And of course, Tucker Kraft. And that's I think one of the wild cards in that receiver room is you look at it and say, Green Bay, I don't think utilized Tucker Kraft to the best of their abilities. And so now you say, how do we start scheming him a little bit better and scheming him open? Because I think he's an undervalued threat right now in that passing offense. And I think he could be a difference maker.
Joe, so less than a month away and pro days going on and such. Has there been any, you mentioned a couple of these prospects and such, but is there any that you're a guy that you would love maybe Green Bay to be aggressive and trade up to potentially get realistic? Because I don't think they're going to trade up and try to get like a Travis Hunter or anything like that. But is there that prospect that you've been kind of looking at like, man, he's a little bit out of reach, but I wouldn't be mad at all if Green Bay traded up to try to get that guy?
I think Stewart is kind of that guy for me. I really do. The more tape that I watch and the more that I see of him, I really like what I see. I will say this, though, that a receiver flying under the radar that I really like is Ted McMillan from Arizona. I don't know where he falls in the first round, but he's a guy that I really like that I could say, okay, could you see Green Bay moving up for him? That that's a possibility. So I would say that those would be, maybe the two guys. You've also got the defensive tackle from Michigan, Kenneth Grant, that could possibly fit into that as well. So yeah, there's some guys, and I will say this: the one sleeper pick that you need to look for. He doesn't necessarily fit what Green Bay is looking for in the edge because they play that 4-3 now. Is I'm going to probably butcher his name, but it's Irizaku from Boston College. And the only reason I say that is because Coach Hapley, very, very, very familiar what this kid can do. The only thing is he's that undersized guy that can't play a true defensive end, but can certainly bring the rush. So he's another guy that I would look for, that if Green Bay sees him and they can see the board falling that way, that they can move up for him.
Good stuff, Joe, as always. We appreciate the time on this Wednesday morning, man. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk some more draft coming up next week with you, sir.
You know what, Captain, and I'm just so excited that you are going to Lambeau Field for the draft. That is the coolest thing, my brother, and I'm going to be I'm unfortunately leaving the state on a work trip that week, and so my plans to be in Green Bay had to change, but I am so locked and loaded for you and excited for you to be up there during the draft.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a few big-time guests lined up. I'm not ready to announce it yet because I don't want to jinx it, but it's going to be a lot of fun coming up in less than a month. So definitely looking forward to it.
I'm excited for you, man, and once-in-a-lifetime thing. And now, real quick, are you bringing Hutch?
No. It's he's got school and he doesn't want to miss school. So he's
Okay.
and
All right.
plus
Well,
he's
he's
probably
got
got
a priority.
baseball practice too. So
You know what? He's a student athlete, and
Yep.
so he puts the student first. So you got to like that. And again, parents have done a nice job with that kid Hutch. But Captain, you take care, and we'll talk soon, brother.
you got it. There you go. There's Joe DeGuano joining us here this morning. Let's take a quick break and we'll finish up the second hour before we get to some stock reports coming up after these quick words. Not only is the transfer portal open for college athletes in basketball right now, but you were seeing the constant movement of new coaches going to different places and such. And one of those is Richard Pitino is on the move again, going to Xavier as a former Gophers head coach there. Does it grind your gears a little bit that maybe your Gophers were just a little, maybe one stop too soon for Richard Pitino's future Hall of Fame career right now? I mean, you did get an NIT championship, I suppose, right?
Oh, it was a coach championship with Rick.
Yeah, with Rick helping him out behind the bench there.
Hey, you know, but, well, I mean, titles are titles. I mean, like, it's not like he's exactly gone on to be, you know, Dan Hurley here. So,
not yet.
Yeah, he's got. I mean, what? Patino's what? 25,
somewhere around there.
No, like, I mean, he was a decent coach, and he'll be.
You wish you had him. He's 42 right now, by the way.
Still pretty young, all things given how long he's been around.
Yeah. I have a feeling this won't be his last stop either.
Probably not, though. Again, this is where you wonder about where the future of basketball schools are going to go. Xavier is extremely a basketball school. So in the $20 million NIL era, Xavier is going to be able to devote a lot more of their money than a lot of those other schools, SEC. Does this also mean Vanderbilt is suddenly going to end up as like the dominant SEC basketball program in 10 years, given where their football program's at? But I mean, maybe this becomes the place to like Xavier's. Gosh, if you're tiering basketball programs, the ones are the blue bloods, the Duke, Kentucky, Kansases of the world. 2 is the schools that are regularly competitive. Would you put them on Mount Rushmore? Maybe not. And we're talking like Michigan State. I don't know if UConn's graduated up there quite yet. I mean, they could be a step higher up to Mount Rushmore. Xavier's like in the third tier, where they're always kind of good. They never make the Final Four, but you always feel like they should be in the NCAA tournament. Like
Sean Miller for the longest time, his first stint, not necessarily his second stint. He just left and took the Texas job. Even like, was it Chris Mack? Badgers beat them in that Bill Murray shock face game with Bronson Koenig. I think Xavier was a 2 seed on that one. But get ready now, though, because you do know what conference Xavier's in.
Oh, yeah.
Big East, which is the same conference as St. John's, where Daddy coaches. So
the Pitino Bowl.
You can know that's probably where ESPN's going to be at for some of their main games and, you know, scheduling wise.
That's where we insert the joke about Rick Pitino's going to be coaching the opposing team and blah, 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 blah,
maybe
blah.
Taking it easy on his kids.
Yeah.
You know, over there. But
awesome. But hey, I mean, it's good. Well, there you go. More ratings, more attention. And I don't mean that cynically. That's what's going to end up happening because of that. 2 Pitino visits a season to Marquette.
Yeah.
So you got that at Fiserv Forum. I mean, and in terms of my favorite men's college basketball team, D1, like would I take Richard Pitino right now where he's advanced in his career, or would I take Nico Medved? I'd probably take Nico Medved. I don't know for sure, but I think his track record seems to be accelerating better. Plus, I think he's more likely to stick around, like you were saying with Richard Pitino. What's his end game? I don't know. I mean, if Rick Pitino,
I thought Sean Miller was going to stay around at Xavier second stint there, but no, apparently not.
That surprised me a little bit. But like, well, my gosh, if you're talking about coaches that don't seem to have one home base ultimately, hello, Rick Pitino. So I don't know where Richard Pitino's final spot is, and he's probably got, I think he could have another 3 schools after Xavier, given his age. And if he's decent enough, and he probably is decent enough, he's probably not as good as Rick Pitino, and that's not a knock. I mean, it's very tough to be the same as an icon. Yeah, he's probably not going to stay at Xavier.
I was thinking about this the other day. It's, you know, once in a while you see this online, like build your ultimate quarterback. You know, it's like the arm strength, I want this guy. Head, I want this guy, and all that. And I'm sitting there like, 'cause I was watching that St. John's and Arkansas game, and I'm like, if I built the ultimate college basketball coach, I want Rick Pitino's sideline presence. That dude, the perfect posture of just pacing back and forth. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, like the arms folded, the look, the piercing look.
But like just his pacing back and forth. He's got that stride down perfectly.
Gravitas.
The presence that he has on a side. And I don't know of another coach that can get away with going across the half court line, stepping onto the court while the game is going on, and he's trying to direct his defenses on the you got the frame here. Calipari, it's on Arkansas's bench. He's doing his thing. Rick Pitino is literally across the half court line on the court directing his team. I don't know of another guy who's got the sideline presence of a Rick Pitino.
Yeah, are you gonna kick him out? No, of course not.
Even like when there was I don't know if there was a little bit of a tiz during the game when it was like Calipari looked like he was walking towards Pitino and you just see Pitino making that stride over towards Calipari. Then he does a little quick turnaround, walks back. I mean, if you built your ultimate basketball coach, Rick Pitino's got the sideline swagger, the baseline swagger, whatever you want. I don't know how he does it all over these, but whether he's wearing the white suit or the all black, he's got that.
I mean, if you want lots of energy, no, you're probably not going to go for him. But if you want
Hurley,
that's exactly what I'm thinking right now. He's like the opposite of that. Like I keep picturing him like jumping up in the air or something, which I don't know that he's even done, but you feel like that happens. But if you want intimidation, it's Rick Pitino for sure. And I mean like good intimidation. Would you
might have some mafia members sitting waiting for you coming off the court. You don't know.
Well, there's that. So what would you take from John Calipari? Anything?
No.
For an ultimate?
No.
Is he the Pitino Jr., who's not Richard Pitino?
No, I feel like they're trying to make that into a rivalry, and it's just it's not there. Like I feel like they answered the questions leading up to it about the relationship, honestly. Like, and I thought Calipari said it. He said it again yesterday on Dan Patrick's show. When he was at Kentucky, Rick was at Louisville. They're supposed to hate each other. It comes with the territory. Like that's your rival. They respect each other. They don't share Christmas cards. I don't know why people expect them to share Christmas cards and have this relationship because, they come from the same backgrounds or, that's why do we have, I feel like there's this build up to try to make it into this huge rivalry and it doesn't really, it's not. So stop for it. I get it. I get the narrative surrounding it, with their history, with their basketball pedigrees and such, but I don't think there's a whole lot there. I don't think there needs to be a whole lot there.
And there's probably a fair amount of hey, they're kind of the same. Coaches that bounce around different schools, successful coaches, really good coaches.
Questionable to some tactics.
Questionable tactics. They're both Italian guys from New York. There's so much of that. So we create a rivalry because of that. We do that in pop culture all the time. I mean, an old reference, you have to go back a long ways for this, and this isn't even sports. It's like the Madonna Cyndi Lauper thing. They came out at the same time, and they were supposedly big. That was like one of the first celebrity drama things I remember in my life because I was like 6 when they both broke out, and I remember kind of hearing something like, "Ooh, are you Madonna or Cyndi Lauper?" They're like, "We don't have a rivalry," but it was created because they're the same. Because they have to be. We do that in sports a lot. So we do it with Coach Cal and Pitino. And
because they're easy ones to make out a rivalry.
Exactly. Yes. It's either if you're the same, like I said, if they have a lot of similar traits, either intentional or on, or if they're complete opposites. That's the other one. If one was a complete do-gooder and had stayed at one school for 35 years, but it had always been their bugaboo, that would be the other one where there have to be a rivalry, even if there isn't.
Right. Yeah. So. But yeah, the whole I did chuckle at Calipari yesterday when he was asked by DP, "Are you a Cinderella?" And he's like, "Yes," and then he turned it into, "I've been a Cinderella my whole life," essentially. I'm like, "Oh God,
so Coach Cal, oh my gosh!"
I'm like,
"Wow,
no, Arkansas is not a Cinderella. I'm sorry." Calipari, you're not a Cinderella either.
I was listening to the Simmons pod. They were going over, he and a couple of the guests who do like one of their main basketball pods were going over this upcoming weekend. Said Arkansas really, based on talent, they should be a 2 seed. This is not a Cinderella team.
They're not. No, they're not.
They are
So,
Cinderella in ranking only.
mhm.
And I could see them going to the Final Four at this point, but that would be the rare 10 seed that really is not a 10 seed. It's because of the way they started and what their record is.
Yeah, I mean, so by his definition, was his Kentucky team that beat Wisconsin as an 8 seed a Cinderella too, and went to the national championship against UConn?
Yeah.
Remember that?
All
I
right.
mean,
So, like, what's the. Well, he'll run with the motivation. That's what
and that's what you
Calipari
have to
does.
do. And yeah, that's what you have to do to, get a little extra chip on your shoulder or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but all right, minute left. Then we got some news updates. Then we'll kick it off with some stock reports. Whose stock is rising? Whose stock is falling? We get to that. We'll get back to some more baseball talk as we inch closer to opening day. Brewers starting off tomorrow. Where are your 20s at for opening day?
Oh gosh, and
You don't even know?
well, like I knew this, and then
They're the Cardinals tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Visiting the Cardinals.
Hey, it looks like they're going to be on TV. Announcement coming today, one day before the season. Woo!
So there you got Twins, Cardinals. I guess Brewers fans, you're going for the Twins. Knock out a division opponent right away. Start
Let's
them off
go.
in a hole. So
Let's go.
and while we play your Yankees, so
Right. So
there you go. Yeah.
please beat the Yankees. Please.
Got that. That one first pitch around 3:15. Weather's going to be decent in New York, so at least that game should be going tomorrow.
That's good.
I don't know what
Opening
the
day
weather's
rain.
like.
Oh, that would have sucked with the Buck thing. That had been rained out.
What's the weather supposed to be like in St. Louis tomorrow? Does it matter? I don't know. We'll look it up.
I think it's going to be fine.
All right. All right, 2 in. We got one more to go. News updates, and we'll be back after these quick words. Final hour on this Wednesday morning, making the turn on this week, already halfway through the work week. Flying on by, man. We're going to get back to some more baseball talk as we get set for opening day tomorrow. Brewers at it, 2:05, taking on the Yanks. Twinnies taking on the Cardinals. So we'll get back to some more baseball talk. Looking for some bold predictions. Whether you're a Brewers fan, maybe you're a Twins fan, or maybe you're a fan of another team. What are some bold predictions for your team? Let us know. Hit us up with a text. Let's get some good bold predictions. I'm in the mood for some good bold predictions. So send those on over. And if we got some good ones, we'll share it with the rest of the class. We begin, though, with some stock reports this morning. Whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling? We will start off with whose stock is falling. I'll start off with you, Luke. Whose stock is falling?
I'll start with the Bucks.
Yeah.
Because of the Damian Lillard news, and I know this isn't like gone for the year or something, but or for a year. But blood clots, we know.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose in the sports realm, yeah, that's gonna hurt their chances with the playoffs and seeding and blah 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 blah. And broadly speaking, just it's sucks a little bit more. What happened with that?
Yeah, I know the Athletic said that there were sources that said that there is optimism he could still play this year, but it's one of those where, I mean, you really don't have, I don't think, a legit timeline. Like you can't, pinpoint it like, oh yeah, he's gonna be back in 2 weeks, or oh yeah, he'll be back by this time. You can't do that. It is easily, I mean, for a season that was already frustrating when you look at it from its entirety, an incredibly slow start to begin the season to dig yourselves in a big hole. To you're just 9 games above 500. You're fighting for positioning here between 4, 5, and 6, and right now you're 5th, but by just 0.001 percentage points away from being 6th. You add this on, it's another one and done, as in one playoff series and done type of.
So of course, this is the year that they're going to go to the conference championship series, the conference finals. But realistically, I mean, they're between that and between Lillard and. Maybe, well, again, maybe he's back in Portis. Yeah, if there was any hope of getting on a run, maybe hoping that the Cavaliers really are stumbling now, it's just not looking good this year. It's going to be a next year thing. But again, what can you do next year? They're not in a great spot. They could be mind you, they could be way worse. There are a lot of teams that would like to be in the Bucks spot right now, but they're also a ways away from being where the Celtics and Thunder and Cavaliers are right now.
My stock faller now. I'm gonna operate under a certain assumption here, but I'm gonna say Shedeur Sanders. Yesterday, the Giants signing Russell Wilson. They had signed Jameis Winston earlier. Now I know all the media people out there are saying, "Well, this doesn't mean that they won't draft a quarterback at number 3." You have a quarterback and a GM that are playing for their jobs this year. Would they bypass an Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter that could help them out right away and go after a quarterback that'd probably be 3rd on their depth chart? And I know the narrative is like, well, the rookie could still be the starter. No. So maybe now I will say this. I did see this point, and I think it could be valid. Maybe the Giants have good intel that they know the Browns are going to select Shedeur at number 2. So that's why they signed Russell Wilson and, over there. But you look back at the last college season, Giants spent a lot of time. I mean, their GM and their coach went to Colorado and spent a lot of time looking at Shedeur and such. So I don't know. This is we're in the season now of smoke screens and all that stuff. So
don't believe what you're going to hear for a month.
Now I see people saying, "Oh, Shedeur could be there for Pittsburgh, so he's going to drop down a little bit there." And this is actually just a couple days ago. I think was it Dion that said, "Hopefully it's New York that drafts Shedeur and that." So, but right now I'm going to go stock down with Shedeur because I don't know where to put him in the mock draft at this point.
My next question would be the exact opposite. So where is he going to go? But without thinking too much about it, maybe you don't even have a team necessarily. Maybe it's a situation or a division or something. Do you have a gut instinct on where you think he's finally going to go?
I am actually, if I had to pick today, I actually probably would pick him to go number 2.
Okay.
To Cleveland because 2, if you think about it, What's Cleveland going to do at quarterback? Now that Russell signed with the Giants, they acquired Kenny Pickett. Deshaun ain't playing at all this year.
Right.
Maybe it's a Kirk Cousins, but then you're paying 2 quarterbacks a boatload of cash. So I hope it's Shedeur, just for the fact that it's Shedeur going to Cleveland. And I don't think that would be somewhere they'd want him. Dion and them would want him to go.
Oh gosh, what if he then pulls the Peyton or the Eli Manning thing?
Exactly.
Or actually, if you're doing the dad thing, the John Elway thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
So
would you be so Browns too for that to happen?
Right. But then if it's 2 quarterbacks at the top, I think the draft becomes really interesting after that. Because then you have the Giants at 3. Do you go Abdul Carter or do you go Travis Hunter? And then the Patriots are sitting there like, yeah, we could probably use offensive line, but then we get either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter after all the money that they spent this offseason.
Abdul Carter falls to like 6 or 7. Like, what?
you have it at Pro Football Focus. Steve Palazzolo just has Abdul Carter going to 6, falling to 6 to the Raiders. So,
my gosh.
He's got the running back from Boise State going number 4 to the Patriots.
Raiders also, if let's say that happened.
Raiders would be ecstatic.
Oh my gosh, that defense! Like, I don't want to be playing them. If again, presuming the talent translates to how many the hype we always get in the draft. But dang, Crosby and Carter, same team.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Exactly. So, I kind of want it to happen just to see the trickle down effect after that. So
one of those, like Aaron Rodgers, like some of the other guys, that when they start to fall, like, whoa, what's going on here? Those are the fun drafts.
Yep.
Draft
all right, stock risers.
I will say, broadly speaking, the University of Wisconsin. I mean, say what you will about the quality of the Missouri coach coming to the women's team. It is a different coach. They have made a transition there. Hello, the women's hockey team. Domination. Oh, sorry there.
Yeah.
And I think, broadly speaking, the Badger men's basketball team overall, even with the loss to BYU, dang, that was close. You can't win them all. BYU is a good team.
Do you buy the narrative that if they were in a different region, different matchup, they'd be in the Sweet 16?
I think so.
I do.
Yeah.
When those came out, I mean, we talked about it. If they played BYU, that was going to be a very tough game.
Yeah.
And
it's not exactly a home game for BYU, but it
sure sounded like it.
It's more in the ballpark of it. That's for sure, to mix my sports metaphors. But overall, it's probably one of the better stretches of higher profile University of Wisconsin athletics in a while, given the underwhelming nature of the football season. I'd say, like, maybe I don't want to quite go Chris McIntosh stock riser, because I don't know how much of his decision making is involved with all of that. I mean, some of it, yes, the basketball hire, of course, but as an overall school that's had a few questions of its. Okay, I'll say the word, and this doesn't mean as much as it does. Competence.
I thought that was the word you were going to say. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Like they're not an incompetent program. The University of Wisconsin is definitely not incompetent when it comes to athletics. But are they as excellent as they've been in the past? I don't know. But they've had a good run here of a few weeks. It's going to get quiet, obviously, for a while because of the sports calendar. We'll see where that goes come this next school year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the last couple of days, I mean, we've been singing the praises of what Mark Johnson and that hockey team has done. You know, in my opinion, Mark Johnson's on the Mount Rushmore of Wisconsin sports people. Like, he's my Badger rep over Barry Alvarez.
Really?
He is over. It's close. It's very close. But
that's
I mean,
saying something.
But I think you look at the overall picture. He is Wisconsin through and through. High school player at Madison Memorial. 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team, for crying out loud. And then what he has done as a coach. And just the Johnson family overall is like the first family of hockey in Wisconsin.
That is true.
He's the Gino Auriemma of women's hockey.
I wish they could get like their own arena, women's hockey, get a dedicated arena, call it like the Johnson Center or Johnson Arena. It would make sense. And I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, and maybe they're Badger people going, yeah, that makes no sense. Like, practical reasons you couldn't do it. But in symbolically speaking, oh, yeah.
I think, and I'm guilty of it. I will freely admit it, that I've overlooked it the last few years. No more for the significance that he has had on that program and the significance that he has had on hockey in the state throughout his whole life, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about a Wisconsin sports figure, he's probably the only one, maybe outside of Euchre, that Wisconsin through and through, from prep days to college to Olympian to now coach.
We talk about a Michigan man and stuff like that. He is a Wisconsin. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't have the alliterative nature of Michigan man, but he is a Wisconsin man for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that would be an interesting, to power rank like the all-time figures at some point with this. I mean, not that 8 versus 7 is that much different, but where they came back in that game, all of that.
Well, and the epic video that came out right before the penalty shot, I'm sure you saw it, where he's, they're huddled up and he asks who wants it. And then Sims is right there. Right? I mean, that's just epic, and then the triple deke version.
Well, that's the thing that's going to get played when he gets retired, like that line right there.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. And the way it ended and all that, I mean, I'm sure he will be asked this and has probably been asked that's what's his favorite national championship. And that's like asking who your favorite kid is.
I'm glad that the PWHL is getting some establishment now. And I'm curious to see, depending on how long he sticks around, obviously. I mean, he's been around for a while, so it's not like he's got another 40 years there or anything. But I'll be curious to see how the Badger alums do at the pro level. We can start to measure that. You've seen that obviously in other programs, hockey programs, and certain men's hockey programs produce that all the time in the NHL. Now we have a viable one to watch on the women's side, finally. And I'll be curious to see how many University of Wisconsin players, as time goes on, we've had one season, how many have success, how many lead their teams to titles.
Well, and it goes back to what we were saying a little bit earlier, like, is Wisconsin a football, a hockey, or a basketball school? And I'm going to throw one sport in there. It's probably not top 2, but we overlooked it. They got a pretty damn good volleyball program too.
Yes. Also true.
I mean, you look at what volleyball has done, Coach Sheffield, women's hockey with Coach Mark Johnson. They're pretty dominant in those two programs. And I think that puts maybe a little bit more pressure on the basketball program to play a little catch up.
I know I think I talked about this before, where I think it was like Rosillo or someone had talked about how like we don't pay as much attention to, or maybe it was Simmons, that like there's not as many holistic sports fans. Now it would tend to be just like one thing all the time. I'd like to think I'm still more of the former, because I count those, but not as much. I'm not going to compare like a Vikings for my fandom. I'm not going to compare like Gopher volleyball to the Vikings winning the Super Bowl. I get it. I know that this, but I'm also going to put a lot more stock in those lesser ones. Those still matter for those players, and that's championships are still championships. Badger volleyball sure counts. Badger women's hockey, that is a freaking dynasty. That's excellent. And if you're a fan of the University of Wisconsin, and for whatever reason you're like, yeah, I haven't really paid attention, you should.
Well, and you go back to when you said power ranking. If we had to power rank Wisconsin Badger coaches right now, Mark Johnson and Coach Sheffield are probably 1-2.
Yes, they're above Guard. They're above
Luke Fickell.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I think Johnson's 1. Not by much, but that's 1 and 2 right there.
Yeah, I would
rate
that. I don't think there should be really any debate about, to be honest with you.
And thankfully, thankfully, we're dealing with growth sports there. I mean, volleyball has been gradually getting bigger. Women's hockey, as I said, is it's now that you got a pro league, so there's going to be more of a connection to some of those bases. By the way, one more note on this: do you think the PWHL should expand to Madison?
Why not?
The NHL is never going to come to Wisconsin, and it sure doesn't seem like they ever will. And again, we can go through that, but it makes sense when you break it down. I know, polar bears. But why not put it?
I tried.
I know, okay. But there's no Chicago team. Talk about a rivalry. If you had a Madison team to go up against the Frost, with the border battles, and they'd probably try to get as many Gopher and Badger alums, that would be fun as heck. Oh my gosh. I just thought of that right now. I hope the PWHL has Madison or even Milwaukee. Fine. If you need to do that, put Wisconsin on the radar for an expansion team because they only got 6 teams right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's big markets, but expand there, do it.
Yeah, I mean, you wanna be able to go into a market though too that you're gonna have the instant hockey support,
You
right?
got their fans. There's a
It's a
base.
built-in base right there.
Exactly. Well, I mean, a lot of the other sports have done that.
Mhm.
MLS definitely has done that. Other leagues to a certain degree. So I would imagine that if the PWHL is smart about that, I presume they probably will be. I would think Madison's on the radar.
Mhm.
It could be 5-10 years from now, but I'd rather put them there than just do the usual. Let's put a team in Austin. Let's put a team in Tampa
Yeah.
Bay. I mean, great, awesome. Come up here.
Right.
The fans are here.
I agree. Really quick, my stock riser, and it transitioned to some baseball, but I'm projecting a little bit on this one. But now that spring training is over with, I'm going to go Brewers offense because you had Joey Ortiz hit well over 300. You had Sal Frelick hit well over 300. You had Jackson Chourio, for crying out loud, almost hit 500 in spring training.
Good thing that I got him on my fantasy team now that I hear that.
So, that's the biggest question mark, I think, for a lot of Brewers fans heading into the season. I know we can't take everything that we see in spring training, but maybe, just maybe, that question will be answered by some progression from some of these younger hitters. So
That would be good. That would be good. I mean, we don't entirely know what we're going to get from the pitching.
Mhm.
So yes, that's I don't know if you need me to do my baseball picks at some point, but now that I hear that is maybe influencing a change in my predictions. Maybe I got to think about that a bit more.
All right.
This is fresh info, so I might yet
Breaking info.
possibly.
Okay.
And not breaking news. This is breaking info.
Gotcha. We'll tell you what. You think about it for a little bit because we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more baseball talk coming up after these quick words. You can catch opening day tomorrow right here on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. First pitch between the Crew and the Yankees, 2:05. Coverage will begin about a half hour beforehand. So as your yearly reminder, remember to listen to the Brewers game. Has to be on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Not the stream because we're not allowed to.
Right.
So don't need to send angry messages. We literally cannot do that. Like lawfully cannot do that. So, but
you can come protest. Like that's cool.
Yep.
Maybe we'll chat with you and have a tailgate or something because it doesn't make a difference. By the way, and then this just reminded me. I still got it on my phone. Opening day from last year.
Yeah.
Because I was like, just in case, the Bob Uecker's home opener, and I recorded it, you know.
Oh, you okay, yeah.
And here I'm looking at it on my phone, 6 minutes and 39 seconds is listening on the radio, and I just hit record, and there it is. I mean, sure, it's online somewhere else, and it's not going to be Uecker this year.
Yeah. That definitely, I think that's when it's going to hit for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Too.
Like it just kind of hit me right now, going like, oh, right. And I know he probably wouldn't have done the Yankees game anyway because it's on the road, but
yeah, for sure. Monday too, it will with the home opener against the Royals.
That would have, you know, if his health had permitted it, that would have been the one.
Yep.
Alas.
Yep. So with the Crew though, we should know opening day rosters finalized by tomorrow, which I'm just going to call it the initial roster because it probably will change after day one for a lot of these teams too. But you're starting to see those videos too. I'm sure you probably saw the Astros one with Cam Smith. The cool. This is what sports should be all about too. Like if you didn't see it, so Cam Smith, who was actually a part of the Tucker trade, the Kyle Tucker
trade,
and you know they're talking. Managers talk about the opening day roster and such, and he talked about, you know, if you ever got in this position to make it memorable for people, he'd want to make it really memorable because it is a big deal to make your opening day roster, right? The first one. And so he had his parents come in and tell him that he made the opening day roster. So it was a really cool moment, and they got it on video. So definitely go check that out.
There's someone, I'm trying to think who the other person was. There was a similar one of like, you're making the team. I can't remember it. But yeah, that like, and they're so excited that they get the chance to do that. They're going to the show.
Yep. So cool. I love seeing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And moments like that too. So
what's the last moments of the Hope Springs Eternal for every baseball team? Because unless you're the Cubs and are
already 0-2,
wallowing in last place right now, every team's the whole season's in front of you.
Yeah. So with that, with the Brewers and such, and yeah, okay. So I'll just because I'm going to wait to do mine tomorrow. But what are your what do you got for your predictions? Did it change after hearing the Brewers thing, or do I got to play the Pat Murphy Muhammad Ali thing to get you motivated too? If anybody didn't hear that,
should motivate me. That's Adam McCulvey had the story, and that you were watching the video on that. I was reading the story previously.
It's only a minute. Should I play it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
it's worth it. I think anyone should hear it.
So it's part of MLB Network. John Morosi. It's a full sit down that will air tonight. I think it's tonight. Yeah, it says tomorrow night on MLB Network with Pat Murphy. And you know, the running joke for the last year plus, the more we got to learn about Pat Murphy and such, and you hear different players. You know, the running joke is like he apparently knows everybody. Like he's got, you know, he. Well, probably played with, you know, Babe Ruth back in the day or something like that. So, you know, it seems like he knows everybody. Well, take a listen to this one. This is just a clip of his full-on interview that apparently will air today. Audio courtesy MLB Network. Well, I got to pot up the right one here. So here we go. Try this again. Audio courtesy MLB.com.
See Muhammad Ali above your fireplace here. What is the significance, the meaning of having him in your living room?
Fortunately, I got to know him, you know, crazy story how I got to know him, but I always admired him. I felt like he had done so much for sports, so much for media. I asked him one time at a banquet, I said, champ, like, why did you just start like bragging and talking and, you know, just running your mouth and all that kind of stuff? Were you always like that? He leaned over and he said, I was scared to death.
He was.
That's what he said. He said, I was scared to death. And that just came out.
To hear Muhammad Ali say that he was scared,
Yeah. Awesome.
that in some way gives all people everywhere
No question.
the grace to be scared, right?
Exactly. Because we all are. Who we kidding? You know what I mean? Who are we kidding? Fear is part of it. You know what I mean? If you learn to use it like fire, you can do a lot of great things. If you don't learn to use it, it can burn your house down and destroy you. So, you know, he taught me a lot just by that type of thing. Leaned over, real silent. I was scared to death.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
To hear that. So, yeah.
Oh boy.
Definitely worth watching tonight to hear that full interview. I think sit down with Pat Murphy.
Yeah, and there's the lead up in the story, but yeah, watch the whole thing. That's good. And if for whatever reason you don't have access to that, yeah, find the Adam McCalvey story. But gosh, how do you get that connection? Like, it's explained, but I mean, how do you get that connection? Like, oh yeah, this player happens to know Muhammad Ali's wife, and he was like, oh, I want to meet this coach, and they're living right near each other. Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that was so cool.
Because I think I remember too our friend Mr. Verdugo, the AD from the Blue Golds, because Murphy was his coach, and I think he told me one time a story too. There was like punching speed bags set up in weight room and all that too. So Pat Murphy's a big boxer in that too. So yeah,
cool. That is really cool.
Yeah. But all right, so to predictions,
bold
for
predictions.
You.
Well, I'll start with the American League. Actually, plan this out. I'm buying it. Boston is going to win the East. I'll say KC and Texas as the other division winners. I'm going to go Orioles, Guardians, and Mariners as my wild cards. I have the Red Sox beating the Rangers in the ALCS to go to the World Series. Yeah, the Red Sox making the big turnaround.
You're buying the every other year with the Rangers too?
Kind of, yeah. Like
with the Bruce Bochy?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's so what, we're now in an odd year stretch with him. But that also makes sense with teams that'll be like so and then suddenly they're good. Which you maybe get a little bit more of the vacillation with higher spending teams. And that's why I would not be surprised for Boston and or Texas, and I'm saying both, to be right at the end. And yeah, I'm leaving the Yankees out of the playoffs. I probably would have had the Rays in the playoffs until Shane McClanahan's.
You're leaving the Yanks out of the playoffs.
They're in rough for them with all the injuries they got. No Soto this year. I don't know how well they're gonna They're not gonna be bad. I don't think they get in the playoffs.
I mean, I feel like, with no Garrett Cole, they're probably going to make a move before the deadline to try to get that.
They will make acquisitions or transactions. That's a lock. I don't know if that's going to be enough. Like Aaron Judge might have to go for 70 home runs this year. And the problem is, will he get the pitches to do that? Juan Soto helped Aaron Judge's offense, and that's not a knock on Aaron Judge. Because we know what everyone's going to do to Aaron Judge. You need a guy around him.
Yep.
They between Soto's departures,
Can
Stanton,
Bellinger do that for the Yankees this year?
I don't think so.
So is it fair to say Bellinger is almost the most important Yankee for their success?
Be their MVP this year. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be great, but he might be their most valuable. But yeah, I think I'm a little sour on them this year. They have a weaker offense. But if this does mean that somehow Aaron Judge figures out how to get around all of that and does go for he's batting 350, on pace for 70 home runs, and puts up a stupidly good year like Ohtani last year, bring it. I'd like to, as much as I hate the Yankees, sports hate, I really don't. I'd love to see that too. But yeah, I have them out of the playoffs, and the Red Sox going to the World Series. National League, division winners, Atlanta. I'm buying the Reds hype on the division. Dodgers, of course. My wild cards, Arizona should be back. They all should have been in the playoffs last year, except for the collapse. Phillies and the Mets.
So
I think the Brewers are going to be close. It's they're not going to lose it on the last day. It'll be several times during the season. They'll be, if the season ended today, they'd be in the playoffs. That's going to happen. They're probably going to finish with 83, maybe 84 wins or something. So they'll be above 500.
Okay.
They'll be close at the end. And if they made the playoffs, would not surprise me at all. That's like they've earned my trust, and I think they've earned a lot of people's trust to go, all right, they will stay competitive in some capacity until they completely overhaul their front office. They're going to stay that way. So I have the Braves beating the Diamondbacks in the NLCS, and your World Series champion in the Battle of Boston teams. For those who know your sports history, I got the Braves, the post-Freddie Freeman Braves, the
Ronald Acuna actually going to stay healthy for
that's
a
the
whole
thing. I'm going to
season?
call it the Acuna 2.0.
Yeah.
Because he's not, it might have been Paul Hembekides or someone said, he's not going to be the same guy we knew after his injuries, but he's still probably going to be a very good ball player. It's just he's not going to be in position to put up, are we still going to call these Ohtani-like numbers, his historic numbers? Maybe not that, but they've got enough talent across the board. Injuries have really hurt them a lot, no pun intended. Well, they're kind of due for a non-injury kind of stretch. And with that talent, I think they get over. My big upset, and it's really not if you think about it, I have the Diamondbacks beating the Dodgers in the NLDS.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those you're like, well, a big season for the Dodgers comes to an end in their first playoffs. It's going to be one of those.
I almost spilled this water all over. I got to stop putting beverages right here.
Probably not a good idea. Well, hey, you're going to get a new board pretty soon.
Yeah.
Plus, there is a history in this room of water coming down from the ceiling.
Really?
2001.
Okay.
We were building an extension on this building, and I was in the studio. It was like right after I started. I literally 3 months into my job here. And I did an overnight shift over on wax. Huge storms. We were having all these leaks because we were just starting the expansion, so the roof was a little open. And come in, I record what back then you had to record the weather. Shout out Marty Green if you know. Marty, you know what I'm talking about. So I record the weather at 5 a.m. and go home. I think about a half hour later, the roof above broke through.
Oh, nice.
And that board got zzz. So there, yes, that you would not be the first. I shouldn't say you. This would not be the first example of liquid destroying a board in this studio.
All right. There you go. The more you know.
So I got Atlanta over Boston. That is my World Series prediction.
Well, let's see where MLB.com experts have this, shall we?
Yes. We shall.
So this is MLB experts predict each division winner and World Series champ. MLB.com asked 59 MLB.com voters to predict each division winner, wild card, club, pennant winner, and World Series champ. American League East, Red Sox. They went with the Red Sox for that one. The AL Central, the Tigers.
Okay.
The West, the Rangers. The wild cards for the American League, Orioles, Yankees, Astros.
Okay.
And then let's do the AL champ, Red Sox.
All right. Interesting.
National League, the East, Braves. Central, Cubs. West, Dodgers. Wild cards, Phillies, D-backs, Mets. And we've got the champ, Dodgers. Okay. World Series champ, surprise, surprise, the Dodgers.
Revenge for 2018.
Yeah.
I almost picked the Cubs as, actually, when I was thinking about it last night, I had the Cubs and I didn't this morning as the wild card, but they would have been my quote unquote surprise team. And I know, well, why? Because they're predicted as a division champion there. I think enough people have broadly gone south on Chicago because they've not spent that much, that if they did do well this year, would be a little bit of a surprise.
For what it's worth, I'd be curious to know how this vote went in that, but it says here the Cubs topped the Brewers in the closest vote count in any of the 6 divisions.
Really?
For Chicago to claim its first full season crown since 2017, it will need a big season from Kyle Tucker. Cubs trade for Tucker in their splashiest move of the offseason. The 28-year-old is part of a trio along with Ian Happ and potential breakout star Pete Crow Armstrong that could make up one of baseball's most productive outfields. The Cubs also have overhauled their relief corps and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so apparently that was the closest vote, but they don't have the Brewers in the wild card. So that doesn't surprise me, I guess, because it's one of those It's like the AL Central a
Yeah.
couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
You know, it was like not the greatest win total, but
No.
yeah.
I mean, I could see the Twins, Guardians, Royals, or Tigers winning the AL Central this year. I could see the Reds, Brewers, or Cubs winning the NL Central, and any of them winning with like 85, 86 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Just okay.
Will we get a 100-game winner this year? And if so, how many?
No. We'll get like a 98-game winner.
Because I do feel, everybody's, but I mean, you look at Diamondbacks, I think are going to be, give them a tough out. I don't know what to expect from the Padres this year. Giants.
Padres could be on either department.
Yeah. Giants, they brought in Willie Adames. They made a couple moves. So I don't think it's like Dodgers are here and everybody else is like so far behind them.
The depth is the best thing for them, but they've also got to keep their team overall healthy. They're who was pointing this out to me?
Mookie Betts has got to stop throwing up. Did you hear that story?
That's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll get better at some point, but dang, he's like way down in weight.
Yeah.
I can't remember who was saying this. It was one of the baseball previews I was listening to, that they're kind of an older team, and maybe they're spending all this money right now in part. I think it might have been Jeff Passan. I think it might have been his preview with Russillo that on the Russillo pod, that the Dodgers might be spending a lot of money right now because, quote unquote, this is an exact quote, the window's open for them, but it may be closing relatively soon with the players they have. Mookie Betts is a little up there in age. Freddie Freeman's a little bit up there in age. Clayton Kershaw, hello, but he's not a core guy to the team anymore. But there are enough older players on the LA Dodgers right now that they kind of have to do the spending, deferring, and all to maximize this window, because they may have to do a little bit of a reset, was the implication I got from that. Hadn't thought of it that way before. I mean, that doesn't make me feel great about the baseball financial setup right now overall, but that means, too, if these guys keep getting injured, I don't know if they're going to get that high. That being said, if everything does work for them, they could get to like 115, 120. I still don't know if that's going to be their approach, though, because the Dodger approach is let's pace ourselves for the postseason. There have been enough times that they didn't do that, and it bit them in the postseason.
Right.
I think it's the other way around. I think Atlanta probably gets the best record, and they probably have 98 wins. I don't think we're going to get 100 this year.
Atlanta in that division, too, huh?
I know, but I don't know. Like, I could see the wild cards this year being so-so, relatively. Like, they'll have above 500 records, but I don't think we're going to have like 95, 94, 93 win wild card teams. I could see the Phillies and Mets, like I had them both in, at like 88, 89, maybe even 87. And that's where like the Brewers are close to them, even as an 84 win team. They're 4, maybe even 3 wins, depending on how everything maybe gets a little tighter than what I just said. But I think the Braves are ultimately going to be notably superior to the rest of that division, even with the quality of the Mets. Their injuries, I don't know about. Phillies are getting a little older, and their younger players have to prove themselves a little bit more. That's where I think the Braves could actually pull away.
All right, let's take our final break here. We've got some more some picks and predicts, including the Bucks tonight taking on the Nuggets to wrap up their long road trip. Can they finish it off with a win and a winning record? We'll make that pick and more coming up after these quick words. Time for some picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room. Don't forget Wednesday nights are trivia nights at the Elbow Room, located right next to the Banbury Place in Eau Claire. So if you're looking to pull up a stool and watch some of these games, you can head on over to the Elbow Room. I don't know if it's just still, I keep forgetting we've got college basketball back tomorrow with Sweet 16 games. This week's just been flying by.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Here we go.
gonna be back at it tomorrow. But before that, let's pick some NHL and NBA games. We got a few for each league here as we start to wrap up those regular seasons. We'll start it off with Vancouver visiting the Islanders of New York.
Oh, it's an even game, actually. In terms of the spread, I'll take the Islanders.
I'm going to take the Islanders too. The Devils taking on the Blackhawks of Chicago.
Yeah, New Jersey.
Yep. Dallas at Edmonton.
Actually, most recently, side note, was in contact with a record promoter from Edmonton who knows Connor McDavid's mom and could get him available for an interview if we'd like.
Nice.
If you really want to,
nice.
hit me up. You could be talking to Mick Jesus is what they say up there. Like when he was injured, like that was like national crisis up or regional crisis. That's a heck of a matchup too. I will take them, not Edmonton.
Okay, yeah, I'll take the
team
formerly known as the Minnesota Stars.
Yes.
North Stars.
Sorry.
So Boston visiting the Ducks of Anaheim.
I'll take the Bruins.
I'm taking the Ducks just because Hudson has been on a mighty Ducks kick lately.
Only for that reason.
Literally every night we've watched. Last night was Mighty Ducks 3, which is Brandon and I are doing a podcast on this on Friday because I had to text him and vent about some issues about Mighty Ducks 3. And the whole series then overall because of how that movie. So we're doing a Mighty Ducks deep dive in our first of many replay series where we watch sports movies and then talk about them, kind of like Bill Simmons is.
The rewatchables?
Yeah.
I love that. I don't listen to everyone, but I love the concept. That's a great
So we're gonna do the Mighty Ducks series on Friday. And I've got some grind my gears on that. But yeah, Hudson watched that. And then he went in a weird order. Watched the third one last night. Watched the first one and then the second one. So that was been my last 3 nights here.
Okay.
Can't watch the series because apparently Disney Plus took it off.
Why?
I have no idea, but
is it Rogue on YouTube?
I don't know, but we can't watch
Vimeo maybe?
Because I try to can you just watch it? Because this is multiple times now he's watched these movies, but he doesn't want to learn to skate or play hockey. So, but anyways, that's coming Friday. Deep dive into that and grind my gears on the third movie, especially. So. Let's move to the NBA with some of these before we get to the Bucks game. Let's start off Washington at Philadelphia.
You have to.
Yeah.
Philly, I guess. I mean, there's a couple players that actually are playing decent of late, but oh boy.
Yeah, flip a coin. I'll go Philly. So Toronto at Brooklyn. Same thing.
Wow. Yeah. Who's tanking for flag here? I'll take Brooklyn.
I'll go Toronto. Lakers at Indiana.
Okay, now getting a little bit more interesting. I'll take the Pacers.
Pacers are playing really good right now.
Yeah.
And that stinks, but I'm going to go with the Lakers. Mm-hmm. Clippers, New York. Clippers are favored in this one. At New York, too.
Yeah, New York's gotten a little...
I know Brunson's been banged up. And...
Yeah.
By the way, did you see the commercial during the tournament?
No.
Genius. Awkward, but genius. It's the Villanova guys from the Knicks.
Oh, the Nova Knicks?
Yeah, but then it's Dante DiVincenzo is in there too. And I can't remember the song that's in the background, but then it's like
AT&T?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, yep, here it is.
Well, I can't remember the song in the background, but it's like Brunson hands him a Villanova visor or something like that. Hey buddy, I miss you, or it's like you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, see if I can figure this out here very quietly.
You would know the song right away.
I probably would.
But because I mean, obviously when before Dante got traded, it was like the Villanova Knicks with everybody. So is it coming up for you? Yeah. That's why with AT. Yeah. Okay. I thought there was a song in the background.
There is, but it's really quiet. I wonder if
Okay.
it's because it's like an unofficial one or
Okay.
something.
Yeah, but
Probably, so they took out the music probably. But
Okay.
yeah, I see. So it's all around the cake, and yeah, I get it.
Mhm.
What was supposed to be the Nova Knicks, and then it got broken up real fast. I mean, it still is, but not as much as it could have been.
Nope. Anyways, I'm gonna go with the Knicks tonight.
Okay. Long story short, yeah, them.
Boston at Phoenix. Boston's playing really good too.
They are. I'll take the Celtics.
I'm gonna go Celtics. And
I
then,
didn't even pick the Clippers Knicks game. I'm gonna take the. You know what? I'll take the Knicks. Okay.
and then Bucks Denver.
Denver.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Denver tonight too. So that game, though, you can listen tip time 8 p.m. on the radio dials 105.1 FM, 790 AM. So yeah, it's I don't know with the Bucks now. It's just
Maybe they. I don't.
the thing is, I hope there's no Bucks fans. Again, with the Dame thing, priority with that was to make sure the guy's healthy because that's a scary.
Make sure he
situation.
lives.
Yeah, that's a scary situation. So I hope, and I don't think the Bucks will by any means. Don't push it, especially. I mean, we don't need to do that. Considering too, if you want to take it from a basketball perspective, Bucks haven't been playing that well anyways. So now on a basketball perspective, it would be 3 years in a row that a star player for the Bucks would miss the postseason. Middleton 3 years ago, Giannis last year, and Dame potentially this year.
You know, they're starting to get into the territory of the injury-plagued Bucks. We haven't really said it that way, I think, because of the 21 title. But I forgot about the injuries and such that they've dealt with that could have resulted in better performances. I mean, 3, 4, 5, but also 2022. Maybe a little bit in 2020. Though the bubble really messed up a whole lot with that. I mean, ironically, it was the year that they were the one team that didn't really get affected by injuries.
Yeah.
2021, which I brought this up before only for perspective, not because it's putting an asterisk on the title, because that should not happen. But it was the year, if you recall the playoffs, like everyone was getting injured. And there was a certain point where you go, wow, so the Bucks are really like the only healthy team left. So they're going to succeed in part because of that.
Well, remember who they played in the conference championship? It was the Hawks.
Right. Because they got, I mean, heck, they wouldn't have gotten past the Nets if Harden and Irving are fully healthy. To be real, probably, or almost certainly.
Or if KD would wear a proper size shoe.
Also that. But there are enough other, like Denver. Denver's a good example of that. Back to the Simmons pod. He and Ryan Russillo, I keep mentioning it, but it was a fascinating listen. They did the sliding doors of the 2020s. All the what ifs. There are a lot. We look back just in 5 years. Mentioned one of the first ones they brought up were Denver's injuries. 21, 22. They could have had a three-peat potentially. Now, you don't know if they win it in 2021. How does that do players evolve? And maybe that's their only one. But the 21 Nuggets probably should have gotten to the finals, probably could have beaten the Bucks, and not for the Murray injury. The Murray injury really messed up that team. Actually, 2020, they were in a pretty decent shot, too. They could have been a four-peat. There's a lot of what-ifs there with injuries. You kind of need everything to work your way and not have injuries to have success right now. And that's not happening with the Bucks again.
Man, I think this is going to start, if it hasn't already. It's going to have the same narrative with Giannis that Packers fans had with Rodgers and Favre. Should have been more. Should have been more championships.
Yeah.
And you look at these, but then I'll even go, okay, you look at these last couple of years, but what about the year they probably should have gone when they lost to the Raptors? Thanks, Kawhi.
Yeah.
There's a what if. I mean, talk about injuries. The Raptors defeated a depleted Warriors team due to injuries, because I think it's fair to say if the Bucks advance to the finals, they probably win that year too.
Probably do.
But
given the dynamic of how that series went and Kevin Durant said, yes, that's probably what ends up happening.
But I think it's going to start to get a little bit louder. Like, oh, are we just only going to have one with Giannis?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what's going to happen. But yeah, it may end up being one for Denver. It's still, look at the Celtics. I mean, with all of their conference championship or conference finals appearances, you would think they would have had a lot more, but they haven't.
But which outlook do you like better in the future? Or which one would you be betting on, Bucks or Celtics? I'd still say the Celtics.
Yeah,
in a
of course,
heartbeat,
I'd be taking that, and that's where being in a, I mean, even with the salary caps and such, that's where being in a bigger market, having a more attractive location, it helps inherently. So, so cherish. I'm not, as much as I am doubtful now that they're going to get another one in the Giannis era. Cherish the one that they had. It's only 4 years ago.
Yeah.
How many
Seems like
teams
it's been
would
a
wish they had that?
long time
Yeah.
ago. I could tell you one team that probably wishes they had one that would be the Suns.
Right.
During that stretch.
They don't have a title at all.
Yeah.
Ever. They don't have they can't even fall back on an ABA one.
No.
They don't have a title.
Yep. And it ain't happening anytime soon.
No. So be thankful for what you have if you're a Bucks fan. This is a reminder, if you're like, remember you won it all in your life.
All right, that's going to do it for us. DP Danitz are up next. We'll be back at tomorrow for opening day. The rest of you, your homework assignments, send in your season predictions. We'll get to all that coming up tomorrow morning.